I'm Dan Marotti.
And I'm Mr. USA WWE Hall of Famer Tony Atlas.
A brand new full-length Memories and Legends is headed your way, fans. But first, let's hear from our friends. Are you part of a non-profit organization, a youth group looking to raise cash for your cause? Stay tuned at the end of this video to learn how you can bring the action and excitement of the Millennium Wrestling Federation to your town live, featuring the superstars and legends of yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
New Orleans. On Monday, August 26, Monday Night Raw is now phenomenal.
One of the most exciting competitors you will ever see in a ring.
As AJ Styles joins WWE Raw, plus witness a championship main event.
I am the reigning, fighting, Universal Champion.
When Seth Rollins defends his title against Baron Corbin in a match for the Universal Championship. It's WWE Raw live Monday, August 26. Tickets and ringside packages are available.
Cheer! Why, hello! I would ask what was on your mind, but I already know. You want to know what has got my beard looking oh so majestic. And I'll tell you, it's sexy as hell beard care. Coconut oil, vitamin E oil, almond oil, both sweet and bitter, shea butter, it's all natural. Yes, JTG has actually come out with a high quality product. So support your boy by going to sahbeardcare.com and take one step closer to becoming sexy as hell. Cheer. Ooh, cheer. You know?
This is Mick Foley.
This is Harley Race.
This is Shelton Benjamin.
This is Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff.
This is the Monster Abyss.
And this is Daniel Bryan.
This is JBL, and you're watching the MWF.
Be there live.
Wrestling fans around the corner, around the world, welcome to another installment of Memories and Legends. I'm Dan Marotti, joined by a man I have so much respect for.
Barry Darsow.
All right, we wanted to make sure you weren't going deaf there for a minute.
I'm not sleeping either.
We've had a long weekend. We've had a lot of fun. We've shared some stories. We've shared some memories. We've talked legends. And now we're going to bring it all together on this program. Your first official appearance.
Dan, it is great to see you.
Do you remember how lousy it was the last time you saw me in this studio?
Well,
they were ready to call the funeral home over and bring me in.
Yeah, but still, you're alive.
I'm 6 feet up and not 6 feet under.
And
so
you've
there's
lost
a lot
20,
of
30 pounds. Your knee seems like it's a lot better.
45.
45?
45.
Well, I need to lose
I was
about
up
45.
to, at one point, about 310, and now we're in the 260s. We like that.
Well, you know, I just started training again a couple months ago, and I blew my back out again.
Did you?
Oh, yeah. I was down about 10 pounds, blew the back out, couldn't hardly walk. I had an MRI, went in and had a shot in the back. Now I feel like $1 million, so this week I start training again.
Now, do you have a home gym, or do you go to a gym in the area?
I go to a gym, and I'm probably about 3 1/4 right now, which is fat and out of shape.
Really? You're that big?
Yeah.
All right, well,
but
you know what?
I'm going down to that 255. That's my
if
goal.
I can do it without the effort you're putting into it, you can definitely do it.
Oh, I'm going to do it. It's just...
You know you're confident in yourself.
Yeah, I got my new knee, got my back ready to go, and I'm ready to roll.
All right, you're a new
man. So
what's
good
in more
is
ways
the next
than
time
one.
I'm here, so I'm, 3 1/4 now, so next time you see me, I should be about 290, and then back down 270.
You'll be less than me.
I'll be less than you.
We'll have to do a weigh-in. Maybe me, you, and Bill can have a competition.
You know, we should. That might push me into watching.
Although Bill, I tell you, sometimes when Bill turns sideways, it's almost like a sheet of paper.
My wife is such a good cook, though. It's hard to...
Is she a good cook?
Oh.
What's her specialty?
Oh, she can just cook everything.
Yeah.
Unbelievable chili, lasagna, you know, just sandwiches. She's just phenomenal. I love my wife.
After those long days in Minneapolis on the road working away, you have a nice meal to look forward to when you come home.
Oh, she's the best. She's a Southern girl.
Oh, is she?
Oh, yeah. She's from Charlotte, North Carolina.
You met her in the NWA days, huh?
Met her down there, yeah, when working for Crockett. Jim Crockett Promotions.
Isn't
That's how I met her.
Isn't it something, especially when you wrestled in an era where you were on the road usually over 300 days a year? You were television stars in a time when there weren't as many cable TV stations. You know, if you had a television on, almost by force, you'd come across professional wrestling. You know, you had easy access to things that fame brought with it. There were groupies, there were ring rats and things like that. Yet not only you, but you and Bill have both had the same wives for well over 30 years each.
Yeah, I think I'm on about 34 years now.
Really? You better get it right.
Yeah, it's right in, it's between 33 and 35.
All right.
So it's 34.
Somewhere.
It's 34.
Well, Bill wasn't sure, believe it or not. We're not going to send that down to Sue.
I think my wife's just happy that I know it's close to it.
There you go. As long as you're in the ballpark, right?
Exactly.
All right, wrestling fans, if you recall back on WWE's first Stomping Grounds pay-per-view back in June, Demolition Axe and I, we really started to break down the year 1989. We went so in-depth, we're going to have to continue it because it really was a blockbuster episode. But my goal has been, where 1989 was now, believe it or not, 30 long years ago, was to really try and capture guys' memories of that time period. WWE has gone through the process of buying just about every wrestling library there is. They own the footage. They can do whatever they want to do with it. They present history as they see fit. But at the same time, there are so many guys that aren't going to have the proverbial 3-disc DVD set to tell their stories. And you know what? Where we lose so many guys each and every year, to me, it is important to have their stories told from themselves, not second or third hand in a book or in someone else's interviews. So this is to discuss the experience that was yours and some of the unique personalities you interacted with. And in a lot of cases, you saw more than your own family.
Yeah.
As 1988 went into 1989, what would you say the schedule was at that point for you in WWF?
Oh,
as
WWF?
you were a tag team champion and going in the year.
Well, what was crazy is we filmed TV, you know, I believe it was Thursdays, Mondays, you know, sometimes Tuesdays. So sometimes you'd wrestle 2 and 3 times in the same day. But, you know, we were on the road 3 weeks at a time a lot of times, and then you'd have 3 days off and then back on the road again for 2 weeks and then have 3 days off. So, you know, a lot of times you were probably only home 4 or 5 days a month at the most. And sometimes, you know, I think our longest stretch was 64 days.
Wow.
And then we had like 3 or 4 days off and we had to go back on the road again. So, you know, the
That's
schedule
amazing.
was pretty brutal.
So for those superstars at WWE nowadays that have struggles with what can be difficult in human nature of 4 days off and 3 days off, it certainly wasn't 17 on, 3 off, or 65 on, 3 off. I remember the Sheik told me at one point, I think he had 102 straight days back in the mid-'80s.
But you know, back then, I mean, you just loved it, and you didn't know better, and you had to do that because when you were on TV so many days, you had to, you know, do interviews for the towns that you were going to go in. You couldn't miss.
Right.
So if you did interviews for a month, you're in all those towns for a month. It's not like you can say, hey, Vince, can I get a couple of days off?
I have a cold.
Yeah, you don't get that. But it was,
the famous line was, there is no sick.
Yeah, exactly. And injured, you know, thank God I had a good partner, Bill. You know, if I had a bad knee for the, you know, a week or whatever, then he can kind of pull up the slack for me. You know, same thing if he was hurt, I could pull up the slack. But, you know, really being on the road for 3 weeks was brutal because of the family and everything, but it was, you know, all you knew. Right. And the business was something you loved, and you loved going to the towns and doing what you had to do.
So describe to the fans at home maybe what a schedule would be like for WWE. Let's just say 1989, you went home you had your 3 days off. What does the first day back look like? And then, obviously, it's pretty repetitive, but just to give an idea to the fans of maybe what a day or two looks like and what turned into 17 or sometimes even a couple of months consecutively.
Well, you just spent a little time with your wife and your kids, and you did not want to leave home once you got there because, you know, like when my son was young, my wife would drop me off at the airport, and my son would just be screaming, Dad, don't leave, don't leave. So that's all you'd be thinking about. And then you'd get to the town and you'd wrestle, and then, you know, you'd talk to him on the phone every once in a while. We didn't have cell phones back then.
Right, it wasn't easy access.
So, you know, it's the old dial tone, and every time you called, it might have cost you 15, 20 bucks or 30 bucks or $100 if you're on the phone for too long.
Long enough, right, if you call and collect.
Oh, yeah. But once you're on the road again, we were always on the earliest flights of the day.
6 a.m.
So you're up at 4:30. You'd eat a little breakfast. You'd drop the rental car off, check out of the hotel. You'd get to the plane, and when you got on the plane, you'd see all the guys. And as soon as everybody sat down, you're trying to sleep, and you're stuffed up in these chairs, and oh, it's pretty brutal. But every time you'd get to the town, first thing you do, you know, I'd get the rental. So you land
at maybe 9:30, and then what's the plan for the day?
Well, the plan for the day is, you know, Fuji and Bill, we all traveled together. I'd get the rental car, Bill would get the hotel, Fuji'd find the restaurant, you know. But you'd get all that, but you couldn't check in because you got there too early in the morning.
Way too early to check in.
So we'd go have breakfast and you'd go straight to the gym. You'd train for an hour, hour and a half or whatever, then you'd get to the hotel. Now you're so tired, but you didn't want to sleep because you wanted to be able to sleep at night.
Right.
So you tried to keep yourself going, maybe take a little nap or whatever, but we had to be back to the building, you know, sometimes 5:30, 6 o'clock because you had to be there an hour or two early for the matches. Or you'd fly to the town, get to the gym, and you'd drive 2 or 3 hours to a town. You'd wrestle. We'd be on late at night. You wouldn't get out of the building until midnight. You'd drive back to the town, hop on a plane and go. I mean, it was just all different scenarios. So it was a pretty brutal schedule like that.
There were almost no instances where you'd have consecutive nights at the same hotel.
No, no, and you
or the same city.
You begged to have that. You know, sometimes you'd fly into like Chicago and you'd wrestle in a town that's 200 miles away and come back, and then you'd go 200 miles the next way the next day. That was like you're at home. Mm-hmm. You're in the same hotel room, same bed.
Even though you're driving hundreds of miles in different directions, yeah.
Oh yeah, you're in a different bed every night, and you'd wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, you'd hit the wall thinking it's that way, and you'd go, where am I?
Or if you were Mean Gene after a little scotch or few, you might wind up in the hallway.
yeah, you never know. God, what a good guy he was.
Oh, I tell you, I think I was talking to Bill about it. I would have loved, and I actually tried to get him into the studio maybe 2 months before he passed away.
What a great guy.
And it just shows you what a tremendous asset he was to that organization and the sport as a whole. I mean, nowadays you have these, the robotic women that stand there and they memorize their scripted lines. But I mean, the entire wrestling community mourned when we lost Mean Gene. And playing back, they put together such a memorable montage of some of his great moments in WWE. He was someone that meant a lot to the company. Maybe in a lot of ways, someone that didn't get the praise he deserved, where he was such a consummate professional, and he was someone that anytime the red light was on, like what we're looking at right now, he always delivered.
Oh, Gene was so good, he could lead you into the story that you're going to tell. If there was somebody that couldn't really do a promo, he would lead that person right in and make them like they were the best promo, have done the best promo that you could even have. That's how good he was. Just a good guy, too.
Great comedic timing on top of the actual interviews that he would do, which were very good, too.
Yeah, you know how good of a guy he was? He had a cabin in Minnesota, and he told me, he says, Barry, I want you to go to my cabin. He says, you spend all the time you want there. I'm out of town. It's better that you go there, open it up, just air it out, and have a great time. He gave me the key to his cabin.
When was this now?
This was...
During WWF time?
Yep, WWF time.
When the heck would you have had any time to enjoy it? You were on the road.
Well, I was, but every once in a while, you'd take the family, go up there, and, open up the cabin, and, I'd call him up and go, hey, Gene, I'm at your cabin. All right,
Now, he relocated to Florida by that point?
Yeah, he was in Florida. But whenever he was in the town, he went up north, went up to the cabin.
Isn't that great? It was nice of him to let you use it, too.
Unbelievable.
And let your kids enjoy it.
You're darn right.
Yeah. No, I tell you, Mean Gene, losing him, again, where I felt like I was so close to actually having him here, that was kind of a tough one. Yeah. I tell you this, were you familiar with the WWE reality show Legends House?
No, I never saw it. I heard about it, but I've just never had time to really watch.
Can you imagine for 6 weeks, Gene Okerlund and Tony Atlas were roommates in the same bedroom, sharing the same bathroom every night?
There were some serious conversations there, huh?
I tell you, there must have been some interesting pillow talk going on that reality show that they taped. I want to see the outtakes, not what they edited to put on WWE Network. I'd love to see.
And are they still friends?
They were,
Oh.
yeah. He was very appreciative. Tony said Gene was very clean. You know, he always took really good care of the bathroom. It's just, you know, he would say, Gene enjoyed a beverage, and I said, what was his favorite beverage? And Tony said, a wet one. So.
Well, Gene could put him down, all right.
Tony said some nights, Tony kind of is a stickler as far as what time he goes to bed, usually around 10 o'clock, and Gene is a more social individual, and he said there were some nights he'd wake up and he thought there was a pinball arcade game in the room because Gene would be hitting on the walls. He'd go to bed, take his medication, swallow it down with a little scotch, and, and eventually he'd hit the bed before sunrise. But some nights were harder than others for old mean Gene.
I love Gene.
No, what a gem. I think we could have created some magic if he was here, but you know what? His spirit lives on with all the great guys that he got to work with over so many years.
Yeah.
So again, 88 into 89, you and Barry, there we go again.
There you did it.
You and Bill were the tag team champions, Demolition. Randy Savage, WWF World Champion. White Hot is a babyface champion. Ultimate Warrior, the Intercontinental Champion. Quite a list of legends holding the gold heading into the new year.
Yeah, yeah.
NWA, they had Nature.
And the crowds, oof, big crowds everywhere. In fact, we ran 2 towns, and both towns did really well. And
at times, you had a C team.
Yeah.
And then, 89, I don't know if that was the case, but certainly in 87, maybe when it hit its peak, there were even D towns sometimes on the weekends. You know, everybody was working, and everybody was getting a good payday. Well, they were getting a payday.
You know, a lot of times, it was better to go to the little small towns than to go to the big buildings, too. Mm-hmm. You made more money at the small towns when you were the main event.
Yeah.
And it was easier. That was some of those trips where, you know, you'd go to Asbury Park and you'd go to, you know, different little high schools or whatever around New Jersey, and
they were all regionalized.
Oh yeah, and then there was probably only 4 or 5 matches on the card.
Right.
It went
Short,
fast.
quick night. Yeah.
Yep. And you're in the hotel, you know, same hotel a lot of times at the same time. Oh, it was nice.
Wow. I don't think the fans today can imagine just how hot of a period it was for professional wrestling at that point. Again, we talked about, you know, the other territories were dying off, but as far as WWF/WWE as an entity, I mean, everywhere you went, you were drawing great.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it was phenomenal. And, you know, you wanted to follow Hulk around because
right.
wherever Hulk was, whew, you know, and then you made some money with him. So it was good times.
1989, it was one of the great years, I think, in WWF history. And you know, on the flip side, NWA had a really great year down south, too.
Oh, yeah.
With the Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat battles, and then Ric Flair and Terry Funk. And
you know, when I left Crockett's territory, I was partners with Ivan down there at that time. When I got together with Bill, the first time I went in the locker room for the WWF, I was with Bill and I was with Fuji. Thank God I was with them because I was probably the youngest guy in the territory. And
yeah, I don't think some fans realized that there was kind of an age gap between you and Bill.
Oh yeah, but it's 10 years.
Oh, at least.
Yeah, 12 years.
Yeah.
So I was, what, 24 years old when
you were
first
that young,
started.
yeah.
I believe that's what it was.
That's simple math, right.
So I was the youngest guy in that territory, and nobody there knew who I was. I was already, was with Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes and, you know, all those guys down in the Southern Territory, but I never met everybody in the WWF territory. So when I walked in the locker room, the first guy I see is like, you know, Don Morocco. You know, I'm watching these guys on TV, you know, way back. You know, once you're, you know, a wrestling mark, you're always one. Well, I see him, I see Paul Orndorff and Jimmy Snuka, Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, The Sheik. I mean, it goes right down the line. I'm like, holy cow, I'm 24 years old in the WWF, your dream. These guys didn't have a clue who I was, but just because I was with Fuji and with Bill, then I was somebody. So right away when you shake hands with everybody, everybody says, hey, this guy must be pretty good.
He had credibility with
He's
them.
with these guys. So thank God, and all these guys were phenomenal. But what an experience going up there to see all these guys.
Oh, I can imagine. At 24 years old, just going back there behind the curtain and seeing the guys, you know, not to take anything away with what was going on down for Jim Crockett, but a different world than WWF, to say the least.
Yeah, well, you know, Vince McMahon made everybody stars. We were down here, you were wrestlers, and you know, it was a whole different ball game between the two of them. It's like fans would look at them and they're in awe looking at them. They're like movie stars. Was it a little easier for you than a lot of the guys during an era when you couldn't go to a restaurant or an airport or anything without being flocked by fans? But where you and Bill wore the makeup, was it any easier for you? It was great. You know, we'd kind of stay away from everybody. All the fans would go right to them, and they'd look at Bill and I. You know, who are these two big guys?
Did Fuji give it away, though?
Well, yeah, when you walk with Fuji, but you try to get Fuji over here, and we'd walk separate, you know. So, yeah, it was nice, you know. When I was down in Crockett's territory, you know, me and Ivan with the shaved heads and Nikita, you know, they knew we were the Russians down there. And,
right away.
You know, then every place you went, they knew who you were. So it was nice going up there and not having everybody know who you were.
There you go. You got to take whatever benefits you can get with the fame, right? At least you guys had a little bit more privacy.
Well, and we weren't the type of guys that, you know, really wanted that. We were, you know, in the wrestling business. It was a job. It was our career, and then we wanted to leave that when we went home to be with our family. So it was kind of a nice mix. It didn't go to our heads.
There you go. Well,
you know,
when you can stay grounded, look at the guys, some of whom are no longer with us, that didn't stay with their feet to the ground, you know?
Yeah.
That's tough. What the first unofficial big event of 1989 was the January 7th Saturday night's main event, taped probably about a month earlier in December of '88, but that's when it aired on NBC. Those were always big extravaganzas at the time, replacing Saturday Night Live. I don't think maybe fans today would realize what a big deal it was to have a professional wrestling show replace something as hot as Saturday Night Live on NBC.
Right, right. Yeah, I can't. You remember what we did on that?
You guys weren't even on this one, but the fans threw a couple of bullet points at us. It was the night, if we talk about memorable moments in professional wrestling, when the Red Rooster Terry Taylor turned on Bobby Heenan in the newly named Brooklyn Brawler, the former Steve Lombardi. You were around Terry Taylor a lot through your career.
I love Terry Taylor. Yeah.
What did you think of a Red Rooster?
I didn't like that gimmick at all.
Why?
I just thought they were trying to make fun of Terry. You know, when I was in Mid-South Wrestling, I was just new in the business. I didn't have a clue what I was doing, and I wrestled Terry Taylor a lot. He taught me a lot. He was a really, really good guy. And when I think they put that Red Rooster gimmick on him, I think they did that to make fun of him. I mean, and I just didn't think that was good.
The only person I've ever heard defend the Red Rooster character, other than the way you just did, was Bruce Pritchard, who has said that, you know, Vince McMahon would not waste the time and money on television to humiliate someone, that they really thought they could do something creative with a Red Rooster. I was probably the age that they were trying to get interested in what a Red Rooster would be, and let me tell you, at 8 years old, I scoffed at a Red Rooster.
Well, yeah, I didn't know what. I still don't understand what it meant or what it was. You know, that's why I thought it was so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then he was trying to be like a rooster. I just, you know.
And I'm telling you, a guy, maybe not the greatest charisma in the world, but a heck of a talent. Very smart guy.
Oh, unbelievable.
I mean, I could see an undercard guy with little talent being given a comedic gimmick like that to make kids laugh, but I think Terry Taylor had too much talent. If Red Rooster was a sincere attempt to make money with, which is debatable, if it was sincere, I think it was the wrong guy for that character.
Yeah, exactly. When in Mid-South, he was just a young baby face, and he got over big time down there. But that was a small territory.
Right.
But when you put that Rooster gimmick, it killed them off big time. You know, you couldn't do anything with them then.
Right. There was no coming back from it in WWE.
No.
Let me ask you this one. Brooklyn Brawler, you had now been in WWE now for a little over 2 years. An enhancement guy, jobber pretty much for the duration of his career. Did you think the fans saw credibility in Steve Lombardi trying to be repackaged as a Brooklyn Brawler all of a sudden?
You know, I don't know. You know, Steve was always a good guy to me and everything, and what a great gimmick, you know. But he didn't get put in the positions anyway to get over anyway. You know what I mean?
Well, I heard he put himself in some positions. Yeah. But that's a different story for a different time.
But he was an enhancement guy, and it's hard to take an enhancement guy and all of a sudden make him the top guy.
Right, right.
And I think they were going to start to try, and it just didn't work. But he was just good at that position. I think.
Even Bobby couldn't get that over.
Yeah.
And Bobby Heenan, I think we.
But what a great gimmick, though, the Brooklyn Brawler.
It was. You know what? I'll say this. In Bobby Heenan's book, he wrote that, you know, he thought Lombardi should have presented himself, you know, filthy and dirty and, you know, like a real gritty brawler type person. And he said, you know, he put on a T-shirt and jeans and a little hat and a cigar, and he just went out and did his thing. So maybe if Lombardi invested a little bit more in it, maybe it could have been a bigger success.
Well, yeah, it's like he was acting like the Brooklyn Brawler. He wasn't really.
He didn't be the Brooklyn Brawler.
He didn't be. It was like when I became Smash, I was Smash. That's why I think it got over. It got over because he had a good partner, a good manager, and it was a good package deal.
Yeah, great package deal.
And I think that's what helped it get over, because we really became those characters. Where I think the Brooklyn Brawler, he didn't really become that Brooklyn Brawler. He just didn't know how that gimmick was supposed to be. Mm-hmm. Don't you agree?
Well, like you said, there was longevity to it for him.
Yeah.
He made, you know, maybe not huge money.
Well, is he still there?
No, he got fired for, apparently he was leaking information to the newsletter types, and they caught on to that, and it was, well, Gorilla Monsoon used to say, stick a fork in him. Well, maybe something was stuck in Steve. We'll see. Same night, it was pretty much the end of a guy that really didn't have much more than a cup of coffee in WWE. Brutus the Barber Beefcake defeated Outlaw Ron Bass, shaved his head, and it was bye-bye Ron Bass, a guy that I thought had a lot of credibility as a heel. His promos were very believable. He didn't have a great physique, but, you know, you really believe that was a nasty asshole of a cowboy when you saw him.
God, he was a good worker, too. I mean, he could work with anybody. And he wasn't a high-flying guy or anything, but he was just smart. He told the story in the matches. He was a good guy, and I couldn't believe they got rid of him.
Now, Bill said you guys had some kind of a business venture with him outside of wrestling?
We all put money in, and we had there was a tent with flowers that Ron Bass was going to
try and sell?
Yeah. You know,
like so you guys were like investors.
Yeah, you know, like in a parking lot where you have the tent with all the flowers in it, and somebody runs it and they sell them. Oh. We started that, and I don't ever know what really happened with that.
So it wasn't the greatest business venture.
It wasn't the greatest business venture of all time, that's for sure.
Well, you know,
but we tried.
You tried.
We tried.
What is the saying in basketball? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. What if it had turned into a great success, like some of your other business ventures had? You could have been the world's greatest flower tent pioneer of the 20th century.
And I knew nothing about flowers.
There you go. You knew how to invest the money, though, because you knew how to make it.
Yeah.
And
that's probably why it didn't go very well, because I wasn't there. You know?
Exactly. Do you remember, and Bill had a hard time remembering it, that Jimmy Garvin came in to work a set of TV tapings?
Hands of Stone.
No, that's Ronnie.
Oh, no.
Jimmy, the one with the long black hair.
Jimmy.
And I don't think it ever aired on television, so as a kid I never knew anything about it. But in doing my research about this, Jimmy was in for a cup of coffee, not as a wrestler, but more as some kind of a mouthpiece. He would stand on the podium where Mean Gene would sometimes do his interviews and insult the crowd and whatnot. Do you remember Jimmy Garvin in WWF, even for that one set of TVs?
I don't remember. I thought he came in and he was going to work, and he had his wife with him too, I believe.
Oh, Precious.
Yeah, because they had a great thing in
down south, in world class too. Yeah.
So I think I did see him around, but I thought that he was going to wrestle, and you know, Precious was going to be there again.
It didn't go far.
I didn't know, you know, what else was going on. But what's crazy up there is you're kind of in your own world.
Right.
You know,
he very well could have been signed, and because a lot of the guys at the TV tapings, you wouldn't see him again for another 3 weeks anyway.
Well, yeah, and then if you're in one town, you know, some of these guys are in other towns, you might not see them for a month or two.
Yeah. But I wish I had more of a backstory to it, because the fans asked, and I was kind of interested to what Jimmy Garvin was doing there in 1989, what it looked like for only one, like a Superstars and a Challenge set of tapings. But I guess it's going to continue to be a mystery, as no one really knows what the heck was going on with.
You know what? You should probably get a hold of Jimmy Garvin.
Reach out to Jimmy and see what he has to say.
Reach out to Jimmy.
Tell him inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah.
Inquiring minds want to know about this one. The first Royal Rumble that ever took place with 30 men. The first Royal Rumble on pay-per-view ever, emanating from Houston, Texas, January 1989. How does this 30-man over-the-top rope Royal Rumble begin? WWF Tag Team Champion X, Demolition, Smash draws number 2, and for 2 minutes before Andre the Giant came out at number 3, you didn't pull the old cheap trick, you're just going to stand there together and wait for the third guy. You axed and smashed each other.
My jaw still hurts. I've never been hit so hard from Bill.
You know, a little crowbar
Thank
action
God
going
Andre
on, yeah?
came in there. You know what's funny was when Bill first was down there, I didn't know I was going to go second.
You didn't?
No, I didn't know. They, you know, because they're drawing numbers and everything, they kind of go over everything ahead of time. Well, I didn't really, you know, pay attention that much, you know, and all of a sudden the music played, and I went, holy cow, what am I going to do now? So when I went down to the ring and Bill was in there, I thought the only thing we can do is we got to go at it. I got to see if I'm tougher than him. And you're not tougher than Bill. Bill's a tough guy. So anyway, we had a good time out there. But it was, thank God Andre came out there.
It was only 2 minutes when it was just the two of you.
Oh, it was fun though. You know.
But one of the more memorable spots in Royal Rumble history. Yeah. I mean, you must get asked about that a lot when you're on doing signings. And
yeah, and I see, you know, a lot of the fans bring the picture with Bill and I hitting each other and everything. And that was fun. I'll never forget that one. That was a good move Vince made on that one.
Sometimes it's the most simple things that fans remember so much.
Right.
It wasn't some long, drawn-out storylines that had 20 minutes worth of promos. It was just you picked a ball, he picked a ball, 1 and 2. You went to the ring and you battled.
You know, I think what was so good about it was at that time, I don't think, you know, the people didn't know. Maybe we really were going to fight each other.
Yeah, maybe we were going to turn.
And we were going to turn because nobody knew. So that's what kind of made it such a surprise. And when Andre came out, perfect thing to show that we could stay together, and then we went against Andre.
And it almost foreshadowed that you guys would have a lot of involvement with Andre later in 1989.
Right. Yeah, those guys were smart, you know, the bookers and everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening nowadays.
Well,
I heard some rumors.
We could do some episodes on that could go on for quite a while with some of the knowledge that goes on in that brain of yours, my man.
I think Pat Patterson had a lot to do with it back then. Genius. I mean, he knew a lot of angles, knew what to do, and I think he helped out a lot.
Even if he created a Red Rooster.
Even if he created a Red Rooster. When they created that, they were all in the back room laughing their heads off saying, what's the Red Rooster going to do the first time out there? You know they're all in the back room laughing. It had, you know, it had to be just a huge rib. Had to be.
I don't know. Like I said, Bruce Pritchard identified it as a serious attempt to try and push Terry Taylor. I don't know if I'd see it, but every one of the talents, the peers that I've spoken to over the years, said it was a complete attempt to shit on him. So we'll have to ask Terry sometime. I like Terry an awful lot. When he was with TNA, he was great to me. Great guy.
I love Terry, and they did it
Smart
to bury him.
Guy.
Terry had some heat somewhere, and they were trying to bury him.
One thing I had heard was that he would call the office relentlessly trying to get in. So maybe that was their way to say, oh, you want to come in? Come on. We're going to turn you into a barnyard animal. You want to know what I think's funny right now? We have such a great crew that helps us bring these shows to life. And both of these individuals sitting behind the camera right now know next to nothing about professional wrestling other than it exists. I wonder in their minds what they think when we're talking about a Red Rooster
wrestling.
And a Brooklyn Brawler trying to position himself in certain ways. But we'll have to ask them off the air about that.
What was the gimmick? It wasn't a rooster, it was a hawk or something. Hector Guerrero was in it.
They came out of the egg. The gobbledygooker.
The gobbledygooker.
Survivor Series. Bill's last night. When he popped out of the egg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Terry Taylor would have been better off being in a complete rooster costume.
Because no one would have known it was him.
Right.
Right.
Then it would have got over, because the way he can work, it would have really got over.
Now, I wanted to talk about gobbledygooker once we got to 1990 as time goes on in these episodes.
I jumped the gun on you.
No, that's, you know what, sometime we may forget, we may run out of time, you never know, but again, WWE is trying to appeal to kids. When gobbledygooker Survivor Series 90, I was 10, and I mean, again, I scoffed at it. I could not believe I was watching this mascot like it was at Disney World or something. And then you have poor Mean Gene as the first one trying to put him over. They're in the ring do-si-doing around the Hartford Civic Center and playing the Gobbledygooker theme song, and it's like,
The entertainment business.
It wasn't all that interesting then, and it certainly hasn't aged well.
No.
But the Gobbledygooker got a nice payoff at WrestleMania 17 in the Gimmick Battle Royal. He wasn't completely forgotten.
Yeah.
You were in that one too in Houston. That WrestleMania 17 Gimmick Battle Royal. You were
was I the Repo
Man
Man
though.
then?
Yeah, you were Repo Man in that one.
Was I in there for about 25 minutes or so?
25
I think it was
minutes.
20
I think it might have been 25 seconds. That was one of the quickest battle royals I've ever seen.
Gosh.
And then they couldn't get poor Sheiky Baby over the top rope, so he had to go over. He's the Battle Royal champion along with world champion and tag team champion.
You know, I was working at my regular job, and Howard Finkel calls me up and he says, "Hey Barry," he's real serious. He goes, "Do you want to be in a Gimmick Battle Royal in WrestleMania?" And I said, "Howard, no, I don't." I said, "I'm done wrestling. I got a business I'm doing. I really don't have time to go to WrestleMania." He says, "You got to be kidding me." He says, "You got to make the show." And I said, "Howard, I just don't want to do it." And he says, "Well, Vince really wants you to be there." He says, "I'm going to hang up and I'm going to give you a call back tomorrow." And I said, "Howard, you don't even have to bother. I'm not going to come." So he hangs up. Next day he calls back. He says, "Barry, please," he says, "for me." He says, "Will you just come to the Gimmick Battle Royal? I haven't seen you in years. I want to say hi. You can say hi to everybody." I said, "All right,
They could have
Howard."
offered you a deal too, beyond one night, but
Well, they paid you, but it ain't much anyway. So anyways, I said, "Howard, you know what? I'm going to go." So when I went down there, it was worth going just to see all the guys again.
Yeah.
It was huge.
You had a good time?
And I had a great time. So that little 15 seconds in and out of there was fantastic because I didn't get hurt.
there you go.
And
then
nobody else got hurt.
And
So
you went back to reality the next day.
Went back to reality. But
What kind of a payday would you get for a Gimmick Battle Royal?
I think I got $3,000 for that.
That's not bad.
Not bad at all.
They flew you in, put you up in the
Flew
hotel?
me up, put me into the hotel.
Did they
all
bring
that
your wife
stuff.
too, or just you?
Just me.
Just you. All right, that's not
Yeah.
bad. Hey, maybe you needed a little break at that point. You
Yeah,
weren't on the
right.
road anymore.
Yeah, but how much did I lose at work too then?
How many days did you have to miss for work? Just one?
It was 3 days, I believe I was there.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday type deal?
Yeah.
And then flew home on the Mondays. Oh, so you
Yeah.
did have to miss a little time.
Yeah, so you lose a little bit of money there too. But
All right. On the tail end of the Royal Rumble, the winner was the short-lived return of Big John Studd. Your memories of Big John Studd coming back into the fold, a guy that was one of the big heels of the mid-'80s, and he came back now as a babyface, rejecting Bobby Heenan, and John Studd was back.
I like John Studd.
What a nice human being.
Oh, yeah, but to call himself the Giant wasn't good.
I think that led to some painful nights for him.
Oh, and I mean, he was huge, but he wasn't a giant like Andre the Giant.
Right.
And I think those two really had some pretty serious feuds in real life. But John was a good guy. I trained with him at the gym quite a few times, and he was a nice man.
He learned from Killer Kowalski right down the street in Malden, Mass, which is not even 5 minutes from here, believe it or not.
How old was he when he died? Was he
John Studd? Oh,
was
he had to have been
50?
in his early mid-40s, maybe.
Oh, way
He
too
died
young.
in March of '95. I remember that, and I had met him, I think, the year before, in the spring of 1994, and you wouldn't even have guessed that he was a professional wrestler outside of his size, just by his personality. Very soft-spoken, just a very nice man. I still actually have his autograph somewhere in my house.
But when you look at him, and he gave kind of a little mean face, he looked like he was going to kill you.
And
maybe
he wasn't Andre size, but
yeah.
he was a giant of a
oh
human being.
my gosh! But he had a great look.
Yeah.
And then the walk.
I was a big John Studd fan during his first run as a heel when he was managed by Bobby, because he was one of the top guys when I started watching it. Also at Royal Rumble '89, we saw a transitioning of royalty. We saw the kingdom change hands when Bobby Heenan almost had to make the Elizabeth choice of who do I side with, when Haku defeated the departing Harley Race. Harley was in rough shape that last year or so. He was with the company.
Yeah.
He didn't look good.
Yeah, boy, I'll tell you. Yeah, Harley, a good guy.
A man that sat right in that chair.
Oh, Harley was great. Him and Flair had some matches. Oh my gosh, and Haku taking his spot. That's tough shoes to fill, but Haku's the guy to do it.
Now, I think, wasn't Haku Harley's, I think the term is young boy over in Japan?
Kind of the young boy, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I got a story,
sure.
Harley. I was in Florida Championship Wrestling, and Eddie Graham was alive back then, and we all lived in Tampa, Florida, and Rick calls me up and he says, "Hey Barry, I'm gonna be down in Orlando like in 3 weeks or whatever. You want to pick me up and we'll head to the town, and Harley Race is going to be in town. We're going to have a heck of a time." And I thought, oh geez, what a crew that's going to be. So rent a car, pick these guys up. We get to the town. Those two had matches that were unbelievable. I'm in awe watching these guys. So they get in my car, and I'm so sick. I got the flu. I got about 102 temperature. I'm just miserable. And you know, we stop off at a store, and Harley gets, you know, a case of beer, and Rick gets a case of beer and a quart of booze, and I get this little thing of Gatorade, you know, and Harley's sitting in the front seat, and Harley looks at me, and
I must have been disgusted with you.
He goes, "What in the hell are you doing?" I said, "Harley, I'm so damn sick. I feel like I'm gonna die. You know, I'm just." He says, "Here, let me open that for you." He opens the window, takes the Gatorade, throws it out, grabs the booze. He goes, "Down that kid." You know, he says, "We'll get rid of that cold." That was it. Boom, 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 all night long, partying with these guys. I thought I was going to die. The next morning I woke up, no fever, no flu, no nothing.
Dr. Race took care of you.
Dr. Race took care of me.
I tell you, that man is not just a legend in professional wrestling. With some of his stories and experiences, he's a legend of life, I think. I don't know how else you can describe him. What a fascinating human being.
He's done it all.
He's hit some pits, he's hit some lows, but I mean, what a unique, I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with him growing up on a farm and him looking into, I believe, the priesthood at one point.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I'm pretty sure, yeah, in his book, he talked about that, and just the lores in wrestling, the accident that almost killed him before he even really got a foothold in the business.
What about Handsome Harley Race and Pretty Boy Larry Hennig?
Back in the 60s.
Unbelievable.
You lived it. You got to see him on TV.
Well, that was one of the reasons when I started to get to be a wrestling fan, was watching those two. And they went against the Bruiser and the Crusher.
And didn't they have a feud with Dusty and Murdoch too?
Yep. But they call them the Dolly Sisters, is what the Crusher and the Bruiser did, and they come out with wigs and everything. Oh, it was unbelievable, entertaining.
Now, for the fans at home that are big on high spots and such things, and believe that you need to have a lot of those in trying to get over with the crowd, how many high spots did the Crusher and Dick the Bruiser have in their matches?
Well, back then, a high spot was just getting the people up. So there was a lot of high spots.
Yeah.
You know, but seriously, instead of, you know, throw a guy in and, you know, doing all these different high spots, they call them. The high spot was doing something that was such a big thing that got the crowd up. That was a high spot in the match.
They knew how to work.
Unbelievable. A slam was a high spot back then.
Didn't have to be 60 moves. They knew how to work.
Yeah.
That was work rate.
Yeah. And my dream was...
Who did you like when you were a kid in AWA?
Well, that was the guys, Larry Hennig and Harley Race. And,
oh, you like them. I thought you were going to say Bruiser and Crusher.
Well, and I like those guys, but I like the bad guys.
You like the heels.
Well, yeah, and then, you know, I knew who Kurt was, you know, so it was his dad, you know, so you're a big fan of it. But, you know, Baron von Raschke and, you know, Vern Gagne, all growing up, those were all my heroes growing up. But then later on in my career, when it was me and Ivan Koloff and Nikita Koloff, we wrestled the Baron, the Crusher, and the Bruiser in Kaminsky Park. Really? It was like the dream come true.
Wow.
Here I'm with the guys that I grew up watching.
It's almost like
pretty
me
amazing.
Talking to you here in the studio.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm telling you, I had the 24x36 on my wall. I had Axe's LJN rubber action figure, but they never made yours. They canceled the series.
I had Farrah Fawcett.
Oh, wait a minute.
You had me?
All right, well, I didn't look at it quite like that, Barry. I didn't look at it quite like that. You got me on that one. I like that. I like that an awful lot. But headed out of the Rumble into February, you had the big NBC main event special. Not Saturday night's main event, that once-a-year prime-time slot. In 1988, Hogan and Andre did 33 million people on a Friday night on NBC. The following year didn't have that many people watching it, but it culminated one of the big angles of the era when Hulk Hogan teamed with the Macho Man to defeat Big Boss Man and Hakeem in that Days of Our Lives type storyline where Miss Elizabeth took her first and I think her only bump in WWE history when Macho Man fell on her when either Hakeem or Boss Man tossed her out of the ring, and Hogan scooped her up like the knight in shining armor and ran her to the back and put her down in the bed. And Randy was bullshit, and the Twin Towers were double teaming him, and eventually Hogan came back to save the day and get the pin, of course.
I never even saw that.
You never even saw that match?
I never even saw that
Get out of
match.
town.
No, and I usually watch a lot of the matches, but I never did see that one.
Really?
Yeah.
It was very soap opera-esque, but very memorable.
But I think didn't Hulk and Randy later on, didn't they have a feud after that one?
This is what built the feud.
Was that what started the end? Okay.
That's what built the feud. And I say this, WWE hot shots a lot of angles. This one went a year and a half before they finally had the blow off. It was excellent. That was primo stuff. Some of the acting maybe was not so hot, but at the same time we have special guests that are here in the studio right now. Is that what I'm apparently hearing, Barry?
So we're getting a bigger crowd.
We're going to have to open up the balcony, I think. Right now, folks, why don't we take a brief time out? We'll be back with more Memories and Legends, a look at 1989. Stand by.
White Plains. On Sunday, September 1st, it's WWE Live with a massive main event.
The only thing Baron Corbin's gonna get is these hands.
As Braun Strowman collides with Baron Corbin in a colossal battle. And don't miss
the most must-see WWE talk show in history,
Miz TV, featuring Dolph Ziggler. It's WWE Live in White Plains on Sunday, September 1st. Tickets and WWE Superstar Experience packages are available.
The irresistible force meeting the immovable object.
We're friends, Andre, please.
Maybe you'll believe this, Hogan. You will never, ever see it again. Austin face to face with McMahon. Nobody tells Stone Cold Steve Austin what to do or when to do it.
And that's the bottom line.
neither of these superstars is leaving this match without a few scars.
The story will end with me becoming the Universal Champion.
I don't think I've ever seen two more evenly matched competitors in my life.
WWE's Greatest Rivalries, available online or wherever books are sold.
Norfolk. On Tuesday, September 3rd, WWE SmackDown Live returns with a double main event as Kofi Kingston,
Night after night, Kingston defies the odds.
Takes on Randy Orton for the WWE Championship. And a must-see special attraction.
It's going to be big.
As Roman Reigns collides with Daniel Bryan in a can't-miss battle. Plus, see Bayley. It's WWE SmackDown Live in Norfolk on Tuesday, September 3rd. Tickets and ringside packages are available.
Wrestling fans, welcome back at SummerSlam weekend. Can you feel the heat here at MWF Studios in downtown?
No, it's freezing cold in here. What do you mean feel the heat?
You can't feel the heat.
There's no heat, except for the crowd that just came in. It kind of warmed up the place.
They were a hot crowd. Let me tell you, though, what about the meal we had last night that you missed at the taping we had?
Well, I don't know what it was like.
Gabriella's, the heat from the buffalo sauce. It warmed my heart.
Well, I didn't see that, so I don't know how hot
you were
that
on the
buffalo
plane coming in. You were in the Delta Comfort Plus seat.
Yeah, and I had, now out of 300 people on the plane, I'm the biggest guy on the plane. I get up into the comfort seats because I'm a silver, whatever I am. And then I'm all excited because I'm thinking, oh man, this is going to be great flying to Boston, 3 hours on this plane.
Direct.
And all of a sudden I look and there's this guy that comes on the plane, and I'm thinking to myself, what are the odds that this guy is going to be sitting right here? I got this whole plane, there's no way. This is going to be great. First thing he does, he opens up the thing right ahead of me, puts his bag there, and he sits right by me. Great guy, but both of us were like this for 3 hours on the plane.
Well, I know I booked you the aisle seat.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know when you got the upgrade. Did they put you in the aisle for that too?
Yeah, I automatically get upgraded if there's an open seat
But did you have the aisle seat in that row?
I had the aisle seat in that row.
And where was the big boy?
Right next to me,
He
in
was
the middle seat.
Oh.
And then there was, you know, kind of a large gal next to him too.
See, that's the thing. There's only a couple of rows with that extra Comfort Plus, and it's not at the price range of the first class. So I think maybe if you know, the big people may aim for that mid-ranged price ticket.
I think it's kind of a discrimination thing.
What?
These airplane flights.
What do you
Because they make all the seats for kids. They don't make them for big adults.
Oh, my God. It's ridiculous.
Oh. So I get in these seats that are this wide. This seat would be great to have on a plane.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah, but it's
not happening. But
it's like a height. It's like a height chair on the plane.
Yeah.
That you got to sit in. So you're like that for the whole time, and then you don't want to take somebody else's space.
I would have to say, if you really had a doctor examine the dimensions and whatnot of plane seats, I would say it's unhealthy for the body to be stuck in that position for such a long period of time on a long flight.
I would think it'd be kind of a security deal, you know, or you know, it can't be as safe for me on there as it is for somebody that fits in the seat.
Right, right, yeah.
So,
well, maybe that's
but I
something
guess
to
I could
look
buy
at.
a first-class seat if I could afford it.
Well, you know what?
You TV talk host guys, if you could pay more money so we could upgrade to the first class,
well, see, here's
then it'd be huge.
Let me tell you this. This talk show host would love to do that, Barry. But the thing is, it's all up to the great people at home. They can choose to contribute to what we do in so many different ways. We have the Patreon channel. We have eBay. We have in-studio appearances. Hopefully, we're going to get out more around the country as we continue to promote our great show and have a lot of fun.
It's all up to them.
So the fans, right, you can engage with us as much as you want. As I've said before, especially with Tony Atlas, you know, we'd love to get to a point where this isn't a monthly series that has new episodes, WWE pay-per-view weekends. We'd love it to be a weekly series. How great would it be for some of the legends out there, Barry, to be able to get a payday flying in a couple of times a month just to sit and talk?
I can't wait to get to the next show.
Yeah, I mean,
I love this stuff. Just to be in front of the camera again. It's huge. Thank you.
There is, and I appreciate you being here, buddy. You know, there's a decline in these superstars' income and quality of life once they leave WWE or one of the mainstream promotions. To be able to come someplace like this, you know, earn some money just by talking and sharing their experiences throughout their great career, I think it's a great thing. WWE cherry picks who they want to use and how they want to do it, as we've discussed, and that's up to them. That's their company. But the way we want to do things, I think, is a great way to do it.
Great way.
And I want to keep the legends active, and I want to keep them remembered, and I want to keep them working. That's important to me.
And, you know, we really appreciate that, too.
Well, yeah, I hear that a lot, and it makes me feel good. It's almost embarrassing to hear it, though, because here I am. I'm talking about I had your action figures as a kid, magazines you were on the cover of. Be excited to see you on the big pay-per-view events and at live events in the Boston Garden. And now here you are, not only a peer, but I consider you guys friends now.
Yeah, we are.
I will never forget the manhunt that I spent to try and find you.
And I'm glad you did.
You're glad you did. I
did.
felt like...
Since you did that, I'm back together with Bill, talking to him all the time. I see him a couple of weekends a month. Yeah. I mean, it's huge. You know, and what a great guy he is. Good family, too.
Do you remember Ed Cohen from WWE?
Yeah.
I told him, I said, this was wrestling's second biggest manhunt, other than when Vince McMahon sent him to New Mexico to try and find Ultimate Warrior to get him back for WrestleMania 8 when Warrior was missing in action after the previous SummerSlam 7 or 8 months earlier when he held him up for the money. But Ed had the duty of going through the mountains of New Mexico trying to find the Warrior, which almost sounded like a reality show gone bad. But anyway,
you know, when I quit, I really quit too. I didn't even want anything to do with this
business. You're talking Repo Man run or WCW run?
After, well, it was after WCW.
Okay.
I was done with wrestling. I didn't want anything to do with it anymore. And I don't know. I had so many people calling me to do, you know, shots at different places and everything. I said, no.
Oh, I imagine you must have been hot in demand at that point. Yeah.
I had, you know, at that time I was young and, you know, lean and mean and could work still. And I just was so sick of the whole business because, you know, being in WCW, it was almost like it was completely different than how I was, you know, brought up into this business and everything. It was, you know, I got paid big money for doing nothing there, and it was like I wanted to work, and I didn't.
You weren't used much at all.
They wouldn't let me work. I was like, you know, it was a dream come true, but I wanted to earn my money.
Well, at that point, you know, I'm sure you knew you only had X amount of years left where you could go in that capacity at that level, and you wanted to contribute, not just collect the check.
Well, yeah, and when you only work once a month or twice every couple of months, you kind of lose your skill. Yeah. Yeah, so when you called, I don't know what it really was that you said that got me back, but, you know, thank you for that.
I would not relent.
You would not relent. That was it. That was it.
I was determined to see everything that was right in the world, and that would be you and Axe together in some capacity, whether it be wrestling, personal appearances, and so on and so forth.
And we actually got back in the ring at that time.
And you got back in the ring at that time. I don't know how active you guys are nowadays in the ring.
No, not at all. I ended up getting...
Have you had your retirement match?
We had a couple of those.
A couple? What's your name, Terry Funk?
The last match we had was the Rock and Roll Express.
Oh, really?
What a last match, right?
Where did that take place?
Two of the greatest guys in Raleigh.
Raleigh, North Carolina?
Yeah. Yeah, after I got my new knee, that was the end of the whole thing.
Sold out?
It was. I believe it was.
Capacity crowd?
Yeah. But I don't think the crowd knew it was our last match.
You didn't announce it ahead of time?
We didn't announce it.
Would you go one more time if you had the opportunity?
No.
No.
Done. Can't. No way.
What about another gimmick battle royal?
No, I don't want to get in the ring again. I can't with the knee.
You don't want to risk it?
Don't want to risk it.
I hear you on that.
But you know, now when you talk to Bill, you can't get him out of the ring.
He doesn't want to give it up.
No, no. I had to yank and pull him to get out of the ring, and finally he got out.
He was like Cowboy Bob Orton when we were with him at WrestleMania in New Orleans. He talked about how I think he's 69 or 70 at this point, he didn't want to give it up. He said the day he has to give it up is going to be a sad, sad day for him, and I can certainly understand
I used to have to yell at him in the ring, please get out, let me get in there.
Bob or Bill?
Bill.
Oh, Bill, okay.
Yeah, Axe. He wouldn't get out of the ring. Like a little kid at Christmas every time he got in the ring.
There's nothing wrong with that. 1989, as it rolled along, though, before WrestleMania, you saw quite the addition to the commentary team. And I think I'm torturing the staff right now, Barry.
Let's keep torturing them.
They had a fine free meal delivered from one of the fine establishments here in Melrose.
So they're going to stop the TV show just like that.
They want us to take another commercial break because they're grovelers that want a free meal, Barry. Should we stop? Should we cut again and go to a commercial break?
Well, what's going to happen to the crowd? Do we got to feed all those guys too?
No, they didn't pay.
They didn't pay? All right.
I don't know how much there is. I don't know how much there is, maybe. Well, maybe we'll take a brief time out, check it out.
Let's take a break.
These guys had to wait a long time for us this afternoon. If we don't have this crew, we don't have much of a show, do we? We'd be sitting here under a candle. We'd be sitting under a candlelight.
I could go without a meal, but...
Well, I wasn't going to say it. Whatever the hell that was. I think the train tracks are coming through the studio now. All right, folks, they're really giving me the cue. I hear the music. We'll be back after this brief timeout.
Make it. On Saturday, September 14th. It's WWE Live with a championship main event.
I will fight anyone, anytime.
You should worry about me. It is time to burn it down.
As Seth Rollins collides with Baron Corbin in a make-it street fight for the Universal Championship, plus the Man, Becky Lynch, and the Fiend, Bray Wyatt. It's WWE Live Saturday, September 14th. Tickets and WWE Superstar Experience packages are available.
See the moments.
The Generation X invades WCW.
You'll always remember. Like never before.
Occupy Raw has taken over.
With Raw, the first 25 years, packed with rare photos, profiles of your favorite superstars, and so much more. From the very first Raw to the 25th anniversary, it's the ultimate guide to WWE's flagship show. Raw, the first 25 years. Available now.
Wrestling fans, welcome back to this exciting, surprise-ridden adventure that is Memories and Legends. We took a little time out there. You guys get to find out what's going on in our great world, some of our friends, what's happening there. But Bill, Barry...
You just called me Bill again. Whoa. You know, it's kind of like Gene Okerlund, you know, it was kind of a rib. He'd call me Axe, and he'd call Axe Smash.
Did you notice me calling Bill Barry?
No.
No.
You just forget my name and you just say, Bill, hey, you.
Well, I've known him longer. I met him in 1994. So there you go. So,
you met me in 94 and a half?
I met you in well, we spoke at first in 06 and then met in 07. So I had 13 years to warm up to Bill a little bit. I'll get there. In another 12 years or so, I'll be getting it right.
You're not offending me at all.
I'm not calling you Brian, at least. Then you'd really have something to worry about. But we won't go there. All right, 1989, the commentary team was shaken up, Barry. A gentleman that you knew from down south, Tony Shivani, came north to WWE.
Oh, great announcer.
You like Tony?
I like Tony. He was really good. He was he had a great voice. You know, I mean, you know, compared to Gene Okerlund or, you know, anybody else, he was his own person. I thought he did a really good job. Very good.
You go from having the long-tenured Gorilla Monsoon, the long-tenured Vince McMahon behind the microphone in WWE, and you have a newcomer with kind of that southern accent. There were some in WWF that feel he didn't fit in. WWE, Vince McMahon had him go to dictation classes so he could learn how to speak differently, more with the less southern voice and more of a northern one, I guess, would be the comparison to give it to. And it was kind of a short run for Tony, but you thought he was successful in WWE.
I thought Tony is just you know, just like anybody else. You got to fit into that position, and you know, after being there a while and creating your own persona, he would have been phenomenal. Yeah. I don't know why they got rid of him.
I think he wanted to go back to WCW.
I think so too, because it was grueling. The WWE was a grueling place. Not saying that down there was so much easier, but I think he was home down there. You know, up north, he had to be there, and he was away from home all the time.
Fun fact about Tony Schiavone, he is the first commentator, the first play-by-play guy ever on a WWF pay-per-view that wasn't Gorilla Monsoon. Monsoon did every one of them until SummerSlam '89 when Schiavone worked with Jesse Ventura. So they gave him a pretty good shot.
Yeah.
He did SummerSlam '89. I think Gorilla did Survivor. Tony did Rumble '90, and then it bounced back to Gorilla for WrestleMania 6, and then Schiavone was gone at that point.
Did you think Tony did a bad job? You know, I didn't watch it enough like that and think about it like that. But
from someone that watched it as a fan at that point, I much preferred Vince and Gorilla.
Well,
I was familiar with Schiavone from NWA at that point. I preferred them.
You were familiar with Vince and Gorilla, though. They were
from WWF.
They were phenomenal.
I didn't see the need for the change.
Well, how do you have two guys like that are incredible, and then all of a sudden you're bringing in an outsider in from the other organization? I mean, you can't just go right in and take over their position. Well, you have to grow in that position, and you have to become that person again.
Listening to Gorilla Monsoon's commentary, he was almost like a grandpa, a grandfather figure. You know what I mean? Yeah. I had known from renting the Coliseum videos that he had been an active wrestler before. So while there are some that say, oh, you know, he didn't know hold for hold, move for move, or those types of things like someone like Jim Ross, I thought he was very very credible, and he brought some realism to it. Like I mentioned with Bill, we were talking about Battle Royals last night, and when he said, this is the most dangerous match in professional wrestling, even though a lot of Battle Royals absolutely suck to watch, I believe that this was a dangerous match because Gorilla Monsoon said it was a dangerous match. And with Vince, sometimes he could be crazy and over the top. He'd have those, you know, some of those cocaine-fueled introductions to the pay-per-view where he'd just scream from the guttural just to get it out there.
That kind of sounded like the guttural.
Oh, my God. I mean, you'll never forget those. Some of those screams. He must have lost his voice for days. Yeah, I lost my voice a little bit from doing the Sheik imitation from the car accident story today, but that's a different story for a different time. Yeah. Absolutely. But, you know, I think Tony, looking back at it, I think he did a solid job. I just don't think he was as good as Vince or Gorilla.
No, but he might not have been at that time. But he
could have grown into it.
You got to grow into that position, and then everybody would go, "Oh, that Tony Schiavone is the greatest."
What I thought was funny, you learn that Vince McMahon sent him out to go have classes on how to learn how to speak different. Linda McMahon was the one that hired him, and what does Linda McMahon have? A little Southern drawl to her. She's a North Carolina lady. So I thought that was kind of ironic.
I heard a comment from a couple other wrestlers that people in the office, you know, they didn't want them to have the Southern accent that were wrestlers, and they made the comment, who was successful from the South that made it? Well, there's a lot of guys.
Can you imagine living in that bubble where at some point someone actually believed that?
Yeah, unbelievable.
Or that they think commentators of a certain age are too old to be able to do it? How old was John Madden on Monday Night Football? He was pretty successful to me.
Yeah, you know, and you think, well, maybe you want somebody with a Southern accent, because then maybe the people from the South, they might say, hey, I'm going to watch this because there's a Southern commentator on there.
There are people outside of the Northeast, believe it or not.
There are, yeah. You know, I know you got a strong New York accent.
Whoa, wait a minute, what?
You park the car in Harvard's yard.
Well, that's more Boston, not New York.
Oh.
New York is kind of, you know, wool and...
Well, I'm from Minnesota, so...
And your accent sticks through, too.
This East Coast is completely different than...
Everywhere else.
Yeah, I guess.
But
I guess it's not good to, you know, Boston and New York. You can't mix.
No. And then you have Rhode Island. Rhode Island is kind of like the bastard child of New York and Boston. It's kind of like a mix of both accents. So they really get it in Rhode Island. They're kind of looked at as, you know, the hills have eyes or something like that. One of those type movies.
Well, I think Tony Shivani probably got a little bit of the raw deal, you know, just having a Southern accent, because I know how good he was.
And maybe if he had more time in the company, maybe it would have grown on people more than it did. But he just, it seemed like WCW was a great fit for him. He had a great run there, not once but twice. So,
yeah.
You know, who knows? Maybe he found a second life on his very successful podcast, Whatever Happened When. Maybe there'll be a third life for him in these major promotions. When WWE sees others having success outside of their auspices, they're very eager to get them back into the fold sometimes. You know what I mean?
I think they're very jealous.
Yeah,
they're jealous that somebody else might make money and they're not making it.
Right, exactly. What about a gentleman that we saw this afternoon? A man that also came up from the NWA, not to work in the commentary booth, not to even work in the ring, as he was best known for at ringside managing. A gentleman that transitioned to the office in what would be the previous incarnation of the Talent Relations Department, WWE Hall of Famer J.J. Dillon.
Oh, what a great guy J.J. is. I first met J.J. in the Carolina territory, and he was managing down there, and he'd get in the ring and wrestle every once in a while. And he's just a great guy. Smart mind, good guy. It was fun to see him again.
Do you think it was an asset to WWF at that point to have him working in the office?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And then, you know, they kind of put him into the travel part of it, too, because he's been everywhere in the world, so he kind of helped make it easier on all of us guys, too. But, yeah, he's just a good guy to have around, because if you had any questions about a finish or whatever was going to happen, you could ask JJ and he'd know what it would be.
Where he came in right around the same time as Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard did. Did you ever expect to see JJ managing someone at ringside? Were you kind of surprised maybe that he went to a behind-the-scenes role where he had so much fame from NWA?
No, I wasn't surprised at all.
Yeah.
He had such a good mind, you wanted him behind the scenes, you know?
That's one way to look at it, too.
I mean,
in some ways, maybe it can be just as much of an asset behind the scenes than in front of it. Yeah.
More of an asset, because if he was out managing, he'd only be managing that match. If he's behind the scenes, he could be helping on every match.
All right, we're going to bounce now through 1989. J.J. Dillon is back. We had some of the top superstars in WWF, some that ran into a little bit of trouble. First, a man that you wound up working with quite a bit later in '89 into 1990, Haku. He had a problem at a bar where he bit off a man's nose in a fight, and then he beat the hell out of two men at the same time over talking to a woman after a TV taping in Rochester, New York, the day after Valentine's. I'm going to guess that those gentlemen's hearts were broken after taking a beating from the ever so dangerous, yet good man to the brothers, Haku.
Dan, I want to ask you something. When you look at Haku, would you pick a fight with him?
No.
Oh, these people are absolutely nuts. Haku is the greatest guy, the nicest guy, would never go out of his way to fight somebody. So for them to provoke him to fight with them, they must have did something pretty bad.
To the point that he actually bit someone's nose off.
Oh.
You know.
I mean,
like it was a Twix or something.
You know, whenever you saw Haku, he was laughing, smiling. He loved you. He always hugged you. And I mean, it's just unbelievable that somebody would pick a fight with him. But then when you think about it, if you go into a bar and you know you're not really that tough, the toughest guy to fight is the toughest guy in the bar. Because if you beat him, then you really are somebody.
Right.
And if you lose, it's like, oh, he's the toughest guy in the world.
Right.
And
you know, after the guys, you know, who has the biggest dick, they have a few drinks in them, and you know, they want to try and show off. Oh, you're one of those phony wrestlers or something like that. And I'm sure that's how a lot of the BS started. And Haku was one that was quick to clean it up.
Haku would be the one to do it. Who would pick on him?
Maybe I'm just bad with math, but in doing my research for it, I was kind of taken aback that Haku was only in his late 20s when this happened. I guess he just kind of looked older than he was, but he's not even 60 yet. So I mean, obviously that would have had to have been his age, unless.
I tell you, I loved wrestling him in the ring, and thank God I was friends with him. He didn't get mad at me, because he would have tore me up.
You never had a problem with Haku in the ring?
Never had a problem. He was so good. He's an unbelievable professional. I mean, he's good.
Just cover your nose. All right. Where you guys were on the road, were you privy to it's kind of the behind-the-scenes promotional wars that was going on between WWF and WCW at the time, where as a result of some of the torpedoes launched at them by WWF, WCW was going to at first run a pay-per-view the day of WrestleMania 5, Wrestle War, which ultimately turned into yet another free Clash of the Champions on TBS. As successful as WrestleMania 5 was at the time, it was the most bought pay-per-view in wrestling history at over 600,000 buys. How many more buys would there have been if there wasn't a free Clash of Champions on TBS that several million people tuned into?
How do you remember all those figures?
Well, I wrote it down.
Oh, okay.
But you know, the thing is, I can't read these notes, so some of it did stick into the brain.
You know, when you're in the territory and you're wrestling, and you got a big pay-per-view, and you know, you've been on the road for so long, you don't even know what's going on in the other place. You know, it was like when Arn Anderson, you know, one of my best friends in the business forever, I hardly even got to talk to him. He was, you know, down in WCW, and I'm up in New York. It was like I didn't even get to see him until he finally got there. So knowing that there was even a pay-per-view, I never even knew there was another pay-per-view in WCW.
You didn't know there was anything going head-to-head with Vince the day of WrestleMania 5?
Never even knew it, didn't even care.
Wow.
You know,
let me ask you this, though. Why wouldn't you care about that, though? That wouldn't affect your income.
Well, I thought where we were was the greatest wrestling in the world, so why care about everybody else? They should be caring about us.
I agree with you. I think WWF was better than NWA, and I know a lot of people would disagree with that statement, but you know, it's the wrestling that I enjoyed. But I think at the same time, you have, I don't remember exactly what the number was, but it was several million people that tuned into Clash of the Champions that day. Instead of paying $30, $40 to buy WrestleMania 5 on pay-per-view, if there was no Clash of Champions, how many people would have bought WrestleMania 5 at that point?
They might not have bought it, because they might have just been WCW fans and not even watched the other pay-per-view or even wanted to. I mean, it's two different types of fans that watch it.
Very true. You know, that's a good point, too. I really didn't look at it that way.
You come to a lot of the signings, and a lot of people will say, we never even knew that there was WCW or the NWA. All they watched was the WWF at the time.
Right.
You know?
Well, I say this just as out of curiosity. I would have loved to have seen what that number of buys would have been if it was the only show in town that day. But I'll also tell you this, I think WCW shot itself in the foot where it continued to try and latch onto something that would bring them more attention. Sure, they had several million people that tuned in to see the Ricky Steamboat, Ric Flair 2 out of 3 Falls Classic from New Orleans, but if it wasn't the same day as WrestleMania 5, how many more people would have tuned into Clash of the Champions even if it was free? You know, it was, like I just said, 600,000 plus buys for WrestleMania 5, but most of those people, it just wasn't one person in the house.
See, I think for them to try to do that and go against the WWE, they had to do that, because then to them it brought them up a level trying to go against them. But why should the best worry about people that are less than you? It's like that doesn't even cross your mind.
I don't think either company benefited when they would pull those types of stunts on the other one.
Well, did the Boston Red Sox really care about the last place baseball team they went against? Do you think they were worried that the last place team was going to beat them in the World Series?
Not in the World Series, no.
Well, there you go. It's the same thing. But now the other team would do everything they could to be like the Boston Red Sox.
Right, right.
Bingo. There you go.
That's an interesting. That's why I like to ask the questions, because I never know what the point of view might be from the person that's sitting over there that lived through it. That's a very interesting way to look at it.
So did you watch WCW all the time?
Yes.
Oh, you did?
Well, I watched all the wrestling I could. Right.
You're a wrestling fanatic.
But I'll say this, because of the limited availability for pay-per-view here in Melrose, the first WrestleMania I saw live wasn't until 6. You know, we were still, there were parts of Massachusetts that had cable, but a lot of it, the areas was unavailable. And it was, I remember the first one I was a fan for was WrestleMania 3. And I was so excited about this event, only to learn that you couldn't watch it on TV. You had to go to the closed circuit because we didn't have pay-per-view ability at that point. It was still kind of new. And Papa Marati, he had zero interest on a work night and a school night bringing me to the Boston Garden to enjoy WrestleMania 3 or any of those pay-per-views. So I had to wait until a friend of his that lived in a city that had cable, he'd order them for himself, and then he'd put them on a VHS tape, and I'd get to see them the next day. And would I be excited to pop them in the VCR and check them out.
You know what was crazy though is when you were down there, the wrestling seemed like the wrestlers were so much better wrestlers because you're telling a longer story, a better story, and you watch the WWE and you know their matches were 5 minutes, 6 minutes on TV, and it was just entertainment and all that. That's what you thought. And then when you got up to the WWE, then it was the same thing that you were doing down there, but only it was a little bit more entertainment. But what really kind of broke my heart was when you were down in Crockett's territory or the NWA, it was real wrestling. The heels came out of one dressing room, the baby faces came out of another dressing room. You never talked. You never were in the bar at the same time. If there was a birthday party, and you never brought your kids to the birthday party if the neighbors were there because you didn't want to smarten anybody up.
Right.
And then the first TV show I went to in the WWF, the whole room, every wrestler's in the same room, you're talking, you're doing everything, and then you walk out the same curtain. It was like, holy, it's no longer the wrestling, but it was entertainment. Yeah. Completely different.
One of the problems I had with NWA, where I would watch it just about every week, I didn't like many of the baby faces they had. I was tired of what would later become known as Dusty Rhodes booking himself into a great position. Rock and Roll Express really wasn't a gimmick for me. I never really liked Luger. I like a lot of times I like the heels more than anything. Right. But their cast of wrestlers and characters, it didn't hold up to WWF. I'll tell you, you want to know funny? For a brief period of time when we had...
Are you talking about the character didn't hold up or the matches didn't hold up?
Oh, the characters. The wrestling was always solid.
Yeah, but the Rock and Roll Express is one of the best tag teams
ever.
Right.
As far as their characters, their personalities, it wasn't for me.
Did you watch them all the time?
Yeah, every Saturday night at 6:05 on the Superstation. But I tell you, the one time WWF wasn't my favorite promotion was when World Class was really hot. For a brief period of time here in Boston, Massachusetts, believe it or not, World Class was doing a better TV rating than WWF. Can you believe that?
Oh, they were good.
It wasn't a long period of time.
Terry Gordy was there, Michael Hayes, and
the Freebirds and the Von Erich rivalry, and just up and down the card, they had some great scenarios and storylines and characters. I mean, I always loved WWF too. That was the home team. But there was for a time, I loved that World Class.
So when Ivan Koloff and myself were wrestling the Rock and Roll Express, we were the big heels, they were the baby faces. You didn't like the Rock and Roll Express? You liked us better?
6-year-old me liked the heels.
You liked us back then.
And it was the same thing in WWF. I liked Hogan, but I liked Bobby Heenan's guys. I liked the Sheik, believe it or not, with what that would turn into in my real life. I liked Bundy, I liked Studd, I liked Morocco, I liked Piper. I was kind of a heel guy, I guess.
Well, the Rock and Roll Express was so good that they made us more heels and we made those more baby faces. Yeah. And one night, I mean, this happened, not this exact story, but quite a few times we had to fight our way out of the building and you'd come out and your tires are slashed. But one day we were in Asheville up in the mountains. It was me and Ivan wrestling the Rock and Roll Express, and we were beating him up pretty good. And I got Ricky Morton in a front face lock kind of a deal. And Ricky looks up at me and he says, "Hey, Crush," he goes, don't be worried, but there's a guy pointing a gun right at you right now. He says, just get behind me and you're going to be all right. That's what he said to me. I look up, and there's a guy with a gun pointed right at me like that. I get behind Ricky. He comes back on me, goes out. Cops come take the guy away.
Wow. That you talk about heat. A man brought a gun to an arena to shoot you. He disliked you so much as a Russian, even though you weren't really a Russian.
Right. But I was an American that liked Russians.
Sure. Let me ask you this. This is something we talked about in the car a little bit, about Hall of Fames and whatnot. What does it say that the Rock and Roll Express is in the WWE Hall of Fame and the Demolition isn't? It makes me mad.
Well,
I don't like it.
Is it really the WWE Hall of Fame or is it the Wrestling Hall of Fame now?
Well, they call it WWE.
Rock and Roll Express deserves to be in there, though.
They do.
They really do.
But not before Demolition.
Well, I appreciate that.
They were job guys in WWF.
With Rock and Roll Express?
Yeah.
So I didn't even know. Were they?
Oh, I mean, they had a very short run in '93 when they were kind of doing some cross-promotional work with Jim Cornette's Smoky Mountain. And then in one of the worst ideas they had of the Attitude Era, to try and fend off the NWO, WWE became a member of the NWA, and they started this NWA Tradition Rules faction with
I never even saw it.
Jeff Jarrett, the heel Rock and Roll Express, and a very overweight Barry Windham. And let me tell you, that gimmick did not last long.
See, I never watched it at that time, you know.
You didn't miss much as far as that goes.
Well, I'll tell you, for them to be in the Hall of Fame, good for them. They deserve to be there. They're good guys. I've wrestled hours of matches with them, and they're phenomenal. And two great guys, you know. They deserve to be there.
Good.
And
well, just not as much as you.
Well, I appreciate that, and maybe one day we'll get in there.
You better be.
But it's not up to us.
I know where Titan Towers is, even though Titan Towers is going to move next year.
They're moving.
Yeah, they bought a new building. You didn't know that?
Oh, they must be making some money.
Yeah, you think? You think?
Well, if all the fans would go to Vince McMahon's house, knock on the door, and say, put the Demolition in, we probably still wouldn't get in.
Well, but they listen to what the fans want. So I'm sure that's going to get there at some point.
Yeah, maybe one day. But in fact, it's probably not even Vince anymore.
Well,
probably Triple H or Stephanie.
Triple H is a student of the game. I think he would appreciate you and Barry's body of work more than anybody.
You mean Bill?
Did I say it wrong again?
You said it wrong again. You're ribbing me, aren't you?
I swear to God,
you are.
Not. I hate to refer to you as Smash, but I'm going to try and do that.
You're lucky Bill ain't here tonight.
If I really screwed up and said the wrong name again, oh my God. It's been a long week. All right, speaking about a long period of time, you were on the road when this happened too, but very, very interesting. WWF comes out to regulators in New Jersey and Washington and admit that professional wrestling is a work to try and save
how many thousands of tax dollars and whatever it was. When that was, I think that's what the whole thing was.
It was over money, right?
Yeah, I think that was when we were at the Trump Plaza for WrestleMania.
It was slightly before that.
Right.
They had the hearings and whatnot.
Yeah, they came out with that, I believe. Don't quote me on this, but because we were going to be at the Trump Plaza and it was in New Jersey, they wanted that to come out that it was the entertainment business before that, because they probably got a huge guarantee at the Trump Plaza and they didn't want to pay all that taxes for nothing.
Right.
To be in the,
at the Trump Plaza,
and licensing and,
And at the same time, WWF was kind enough to extend to Jersey. The next pay-per-view after WrestleMania 5, SummerSlam '89 was back in the state of New Jersey.
Yeah.
So they took care of New Jersey by whatever the deregulation was.
Right.
Were you, I know Bill had some pretty strong feelings about it, but were you insulted at the fact that they were, in a sense, demeaning the guys' hard work night in, night out? Because people, when they hear the word predetermined, they look at it as quote-unquote fake. As you know, you talked about your new knee and some of your arthritis and ailments. It certainly isn't fake.
And that's what I was saying. It kind of broke my heart when we all came into the same dressing room, and it's still hard to talk about it because you were brought up. Eddie Sharkey, he didn't even smarten us up in camp.
Yep.
I mean, we were Road Warriors, and myself and Rick Rude. We beat the heck out of each other in camp, because we didn't really know it was work. He never smartened us up. And we always told, or asked Eddie, can you get in the ring with us and really show us how to do this? And he'd always say, next week I'll be in there. And then it'd come like Monday, and he had the cane, and I hurt my back, I can't get in there. And then we'd beat each other up again.
How long did you train with him before he kind of enlightened you to what was happening?
He never really did.
Really? He wanted you to learn it for yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, and then finally we kind of figured it out, please don't hurt me. I need to go to work tonight. I won't hurt you. It was kind of like that. I mean,
you learned how to work on your own.
On your own,
You were trying to work Eddie Shockey.
He showed us the moves, but, we did it. But, yeah, when it all of a sudden was reality that this is the entertainment business, this is no longer real wrestling, and you're coming out of the same dressing room, and, it was hard. It's hard even talking about it now.
Really?
Where now the guys, they have no idea what that was like. They don't know what kayfabe is.
Oh my God, they
you see these guys in the airport, and you go kayfabe, and they just keep walking by you. The old school guys, you say kayfabe, they look, hey, they know what that is.
They'd be nervous, and they'd be ready to get in gimmick. Yeah. Certainly a different era. Again, can you believe that 1989 was 30 years ago? My gosh, it doesn't feel that way.
Just yesterday.
It was still young at heart, at least.
My body feels like it's been 30 years later.
Oh, I'm sure, with everything your body's gone through, absolutely. Let me ask you this. In professional sports, one of the more interesting things that fans like to talk about in off seasons is free agency. In the spring of 1989, you had rumors circulating that Ted Turner may want to spend some of those mega bucks and invest in bringing the Hulkster to the NWA. Obviously, that didn't happen in 1989. Hogan did go to WCW in 1994. What do you think how the wrestling war would have changed in '89 if Hogan jumped ship to the NWA?
I think that it would have popped down there for a while, but I still think that the WWE would come back because they'd make new talent. Mm-hmm. They're just so good at making people, and it's such a big show, and you're a star there. It's up here, and that would have been down here still, I believe. Even Hulk was down there. It would have been huge, but I think he would have went back to the WWE again.
It would have been interesting to see what a Hogan and Flair match would have looked like in 1989. I have to say, the 91 series they had in WWF was very disappointing to me. It just didn't click.
No, but a perfect example, Hogan and everybody did go down to WCW, and where's Hogan went back again?
They all went back.
There you go.
They all went back.
That's how big the big show is.
Right.
Now with the AEW, let's hope that just pops like crazy, and let's just hope the WWE still goes, and let's hope another organization
Let's hope everybody just can be profitable. Have good exposure and be profitable to create more jobs.
Everybody.
To me, that's what success is.
Yeah, and the war with WCW and the WWE, that was a great thing. There was more wrestling fans watching wrestling than ever, and let's hope that happens again, because the guys are the most important part.
Right.
Pay the guys.
Yeah.
Take care of everybody. That's what it's all about.
That's the way it should be.
The more organizations, the better.
All right. Like Hulk Hogan, WCW, NWA was hot to trot at that point. After a man that truly was a free agent who had been gone from WWF for 2 years at that point, Roddy Piper. How do you think in '89 a Roddy Piper jump to NWA would have changed the balance? Same thing, you would have tilted their way for a little bit, or maybe not as much because Hogan had much more drawing power than even someone like Piper at that point.
Yeah, I don't think it would have been as big of an impact as what Hulk was, and Piper was unbelievable. But Hulk Hogan, I believe, there was Ric Flair, who was one of the best wrestlers, the most well-known guy in the business, and then Hulk Hogan is the guy who I think changed the business. It went from all the territories, like we were talking about before, and him with Vern Gagne, and he was in the Rocky movie, and when he went to the WWE, that boomed the whole place. That's what made it. So I think Hulk kind of changed the whole wrestling world. Don't you agree?
Oh, without a doubt.
He's the guy. He's like Michael Jackson. When Michael Jackson was doing his whole thing, he changed the whole music world.
Piper was great, and Piper has claimed that he never had the chance to be Hogan and have a Hogan run, and he thinks he could have been just as successful. But the way the history book was written, it's not the way it worked itself out. I mean, Hogan was the guy.
Hogan was the guy.
He was the guy.
You
So
know,
I think it would have, like you said, I think it would have hurt much, much more if they lost Hogan as opposed to Piper going there, not even fresh from TV, but as a free agent after a 2-year cool-off from wrestling in general.
You know, all the time that I was up there, I watched a lot of Hulk's matches, and Hulk was Hulk Hogan, and he did his thing, and I never really seen him really wrestle, you know, and I thought, well, can he do that? I've always heard stories that he was really good. I went to Japan and watched him wrestle Stan Hansen.
Oh, on that big trio show with all Japan, New Japan.
All new respect for Hulk, watching him in that match. He can work.
He was a different guy in Japan. I don't think he needed to do that in the United States.
Well,
look at how successful he was without it.
Yeah, you're right. But Stan Hansen wouldn't let him just do what he does here.
Yeah.
He had to work for everything he did, and he did, and he was good.
I don't think I've ever seen that match. I've only heard, I'm certainly familiar with it, but I don't think I've ever seen it.
I'm sure there's film of that.
Oh, without a doubt.
I think it was the time when Bill and I wrestled Andre and Baba there.
Just as Andre was just about done.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it was about a week or two after WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever worked with the following gentleman, but on March 8th in 1989, the professional wrestling world lost a man that was known as being one of the best payoff guys in the business, Paul Boesch of Houston.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I was down there for Bill Watts, we worked at the Houston Coliseum all the time. Paul Boesch was a great guy, nice guy, real gentleman. Always came in the dressing room, shook everybody's hand. Yeah, he was a good guy.
A lot of people nowadays certainly wouldn't be familiar with the Houston territory or Paul Boesch. Any stories or anecdotes stick out about him from the times you worked down there?
Just that when we went down to the Houston Coliseum, the building was sold out so many times. He did an incredible job promoting that. And I remember one night it was me and Butch Reed. We wrestled the Junkyard Dog and Hacksaw Duggan. And it was completely sold out. And the fire department came in and said, we have to turn people away because there were so many people coming in there. And that was Paul Boesch. I mean, the TV was strong and everything. But he promoted that town incredible, and that's why that building was like that.
Wow, isn't that
something?
something?
What a good feeling.
See, as much as I don't want to be much older than I am right now, sometimes I wish I was around for these wrestling-themed scenarios and places and territories and promotions and people that I never got a chance to experience. I would have loved to have lived through the territory days, I guess. I think I probably would have had a better chance of getting a full-time job if there were that many territories open.
But you know, back then, too, though, you wrestled every night, just like you did in the WWF or WWE. And, you know, like I lived, at that time, I lived in Baton Rouge, and Nikolai Volkov was my roommate. And every night...
Did you have the hot plate?
Oh, he cooked the whole... I never saved so much money in my life.
Really?
Oh, he'd never let you buy food.
Really?
Yeah.
I've always heard just how cheap he is from his buddy the Sheik.
He'd cook, you know.
He cooked? He was a good cook?
Oh, good cook.
Yeah?
But you'd be in Baton Rouge and you'd drive up to Shreveport, wrestle in Shreveport. Then you'd go to Hope, Arkansas, and you'd travel all over. But it took you about 2 weeks to get back home.
Really?
So you were on
those
the
were
road.
some long trips, 3,000-mile weeks.
Oh, rough times.
It's a lot of driving. It's a lot of driving.
I got a good story down there.
What do you got?
You want to hear it?
Sure.
Ernie Ladd. Ernie
Big cat.
Ernie the Cat Ladd. Well, when I first went down there, I couldn't work a lick. I didn't even know what to do. And I moved in with Ernie Ladd. He kind of took me in and drove me around. And at that time, George Weingroff, Terry Taylor, and Art Cruz, and Lanny Poffo. They were the ones that...
You roomed with Lanny?
Well, no, these guys helped me in the business. I roomed with Ernie. And so those guys helped me, you know, learn how to wrestle and do everything. But every night, Ernie Ladd would, you know, pull me aside. Here's what you're doing. And everything he told me was the opposite of what these guys were teaching me.
Really?
But I would always say, you know, respect. Ernie, oh, yeah, perfect, thank you, thank you. Well, in that territory, whenever you did TV in Shreveport, Louisiana, we had to go to Houma or New Orleans or whatever, and you had to drive about 80 miles an hour all the way down there to make it to the town in time.
Really?
If you were late, you'd get a $50 fine or $100 fine, and down there you didn't make a whole lot of money, so that was big money.
Yeah.
So I'm riding with Ernie, and we were the last ones to leave TV, and we had to get down to like Houma, Louisiana by, 6 o'clock, where we were going to get fined. So Ernie has this town car, and we're going, I would say, probably 90 to 100 miles an hour on these 2-lane roads, passing cars, all this. We get on the freeway, we're on Highway 10, going down by New Orleans. All of a sudden, the cop pulls them over.
Oh.
So I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and he's driving, and he goes, ah. And Ernie's feet are about this big, and his head's, he's got the afro, and his head's up on the top of the deal.
He had the biggest head I've ever seen in person.
Oh, just
what a head.
Just a huge guy. So we're going about 110 miles an hour, and the speed limit's, 55 or 60 down there. And I look at him and go, holy cow, Ernie, this is gonna be brutal. He says, yeah, I've had so many tickets, I can't get another ticket, or I'm gonna probably go to jail. Well, everybody down there knows Ernie Ladd.
Sure.
And so he says, I'm gonna take care of this. So I'm sitting in the passenger seat. The cop comes up to the car and goes, oh, Ernie the Cat Ladd. And he says, you know how fast you were going? And Ernie goes, God, I think I'm probably about 65 or 70. The guy's eyes like, no, you were going 110 miles an hour. Step out of the car. So Ernie, he opens the door, and it takes him about 10 minutes to get out of the car. And he's got these shorts on, and his knees are about this big from all the surgeries and everything. So, and then he asked the police officer, can you help me, So then now the cop is helping him get out of the car. And here he gets up, and the cop's about this tall, and Ernie's like this, right? So Ernie says, yeah, I got my wallet in the trunk. He says, can you go back there? So I'm in the passenger seat watching Ernie, knowing he's doing something here. So they get to the back of the car, and he opens up the trunk of the car, and he gets his bag out. Well, on the side of the road, there's a little shoulder about this wide, and then it's straight down a hill about 30 yards. So Ernie's getting his wallet out, and he slips his foot, falls down, starts rolling down the hill. I get out of the car, and I'm thinking to myself, well, Ernie did this on purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he said, I'll take care of this. Well, now the cop's running down there to help him. I get down there. We're helping Ernie up. Oh, and he goes, and then the cop gets him in the car, and we get going and take off. And the cop never gave him a ticket or anything. I think the cop felt so bad because here's
that he fell down the hill.
6'8" guy rolling down the hill working it, and he got out of the ticket. We get in the car, and he goes, I never worked that. I really did fall down the hill. I said, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. True story.
That's a great story. I love that.
Unbelievable, huh?
I tell you about unbelievable. Big Cat Ernie Ladd, again, at the Cauliflower Alley Club. I could not believe the size of the man's head. He looked like almost like when you go to a Disney World and you see a Mickey Mouse that's got the big, face on the top of the head. It's unbelievable, the size of that guy's dome.
Yeah. But what a nice guy to take me in like that, huh?
Especially a vet like that. Yeah.
But
really
then
nice.
after a while, he drove me so crazy, he wanted to play cribbage all the time. Finally, Grizzly Smith took me in because I couldn't sleep at night. Oh, jeez.
Now, how was that for an experience?
They were all great.
Grizzly Smith, really?
Yeah.
I've heard some stories about old Grizzly.
I got nothing but good stories.
All right, well.
I love everybody.
I need a little bit more of your personality, Barry. Sometimes I swing for the fences when it comes to the ones I don't like. But I only dislike those that deserve it. Fair enough. Like that story we talked about in the car today with the comments made. Well, we won't even go there. We talked earlier about an undercard guy that transitioned into an attempt at least at the mid-card with Steve Lombardi. At one of the March TV tapings, you saw the transition of Lanny Poffo go from being happy-go-lucky, throwing his frisbees into the crowd as Leaping Lanny as an undercard jobber, and he became the genius. Yeah, Lanny Poffo. Did you think that was a credible character for Lanny, where he spent so many years?
I thought it was a credible deal because he really seems like he's a genius.
He was great with the poems.
Yeah, yeah. I think that was a good gimmick for him. Because what else do you do with Lanny besides call him Lanny?
I don't think the fans really cared about him as Leaping Lanny, and I think it gave them a reason to dislike him as the genius.
Right.
In my opinion.
Great heel.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you this. We talked about unbelievable about Ernie Ladd. Did you ever think when you broke into the wrestling business you'd share the locker room with someone that was so well versed in the art of fellatio?
What's that?
Lanny filleting himself.
Oh, I never knew or heard or.
Whoa! Wait a minute.
Hey, I'm.
Whoa!
That's the truth, huh?
You never.
Are you still filming this, or is this a?
Yeah.
Really?
You didn't know?
No.
Until when? Not just now.
When you just said that right now,
Wait
I'm
a
off
minute.
in my own world. I don't.
Bill and I talked about this extensively last night.
Well,
You had no idea that Lanny would roll himself into a ball and have a ball.
No.
Well.
No, and Bill knew that too. Bill never told me that.
It was a tremendous skill.
I think it's probably kind of an embarrassing moment or something.
Well, he was proud of it. He liked to show a lot of the boys that he was.
I suppose he'd like it, right?
He was very nimble. I guess, you know what? When you were as cheap as he could have been at certain times, I guess it would save time on having to find a rat. I don't know. I don't know.
Cow.
I just thought maybe you knew a little bit about the self-service.
I try to stay away from that kind of the part of the business.
As long as he didn't roll by you, I guess, right?
Yeah.
He was too busy running from the check at the restaurants. But I like Lanny an awful lot.
Have you ever talked to Lanny about this?
Yes, because
he
wanted
Lanny
to.
Said he did that?
Yes, he wanted to kill Ole Anderson because his response was not about the fellatio, the self-service. He said, you ask Ole Anderson how many bastard children he has down in Georgia. So Lanny was kind of fired up
So
about
Lanny
it.
was doing that because he didn't want to have kids or what?
No, he wanted to add, I don't know about that. Well, who knows?
You're killing me, man.
Who knows where the pancake mix was going with the self-service. But, it's an admirable trick. I don't know. I guess he didn't have too many lonely nights. He always had,
I guess so.
He always had someone to warm
Let's
up with.
move on to the next subject on that one. That's enough of that. I don't know Lanny like that.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not. All right. NBC Saturday Night's main event is back from Hershey, Pennsylvania, headed into the big one, WrestleMania 5. I thought they did a great job building up some of the key matches on the Saturday Night's main event. I brought this one up to Bill in particular because it was the first national showcase, so to speak, of the Rockers and the Brainbusters going at it in tag team action. And they were going around the circuit, around the country, stealing the show each and every night. You guys were usually on different loops, but did you hear anything about the Rockers and the Brainbusters matches? And were you excited to work with the two of them in the future?
Yeah. I mean, there's 4 guys that can work, and we did work with the Rockers before. But
you never had a big feud with them. I thought it was kind of disappointing about that in history.
But it was great to work with them. It was like working with the Rock and Roll Express. I mean, it was just easy. They were like white meat baby faces. You hit them and they sold like $1 million. And then when all of a sudden they'd make that comeback and you got 2 big ugly guys flying around and doing whatever. I mean, that's what wrestling's all about. So yeah, hearing that you got 4 guys now that are getting over around the territory is beautiful for us. Because now all of a sudden we got guys to work with.
They had some great matches at the Boston Garden on some months that you guys were in another town. There was some really good tag team action. I always thought it was too bad that you guys as heels never really had a big feud with the Rockers. I think that would have been really good. A feud that culminated on a pay-per-view or something like that.
Yeah,
I know they were house show matches, but really nothing on TV between you guys.
And we liked both of them. Marty and Sean, they were great guys and great to work with, and that's it was a good combination with high flyers and then bigger guys that are stronger, and it just when you're in the other towns and you hear that these guys are having good matches, it's like
excites you.
It excites you because now it's like, God, we might have these belts a little longer now because now we got another angle to work with a couple more people, and it was good.
All right, take us to the big day, Barry. See, I got it right that time. I had a little bit of a faux pas last night when we taped with Bill because I was a little confused about the date because it was a long day. But April 2nd, 1989, the Trump Plaza, Atlantic City, New Jersey, WrestleMania 5, the second WrestleMania for Demolition, $1.7 million, which set a professional wrestling record in North America at the time, which has since been squashed. But at that point, that was some big money being spent for the 5th WrestleMania. Axe and Smash Demolition defend the championship against Powers of Pain and Mr. Fuji in a handicap match.
Oh, jeez. What a lot of fun that was.
You liked that match?
I liked it. But picking up Mr. Fuji, he was like the heaviest guy I've ever picked up in my life. He was straight as a board when I picked him up, but you know, and he knew he was doing it too, and he just kind of laughed. I suppose now that he wasn't our manager, he's finally ribbing us, right? But yeah, it was just fun being with all those guys. You know, how do you not have a good time wrestling your old manager and two of your really good friends?
You liked working with Powers of Pain.
Oh yeah, you know, it's not the easy match like working with the Rock and Roll Express, because they're not the white meat baby faces.
Right.
They're just like what we are, so it's a whole different match. But yeah, it's fun. It was fun wrestling everybody, because you have to get a little bit more creative.
Now with WrestleMania, it was a bit different than the atypical schedule that we talked an awful lot about in the interview. You actually had a chance to be in the same place for a couple of days. I don't know if you had your wife fly in. Bill talked about his wife and some of his family visiting with him. Do you remember much about the WrestleMania 5 experience outside of the event?
I don't actually remember that exact one, but you know, I know every one we had a really good time. You know, I did have my wife there, and you know, spent time down, you know, different places, and you know, it's not just that you're there that one day. You're there doing interviews and promos, and you're busy and talking to people, so you know, it's not just all play the whole time.
Right, sure. But still at the same time, nice to go home to the same bed for a few nights in a row.
Right, right. And it was just a good place, you know. Yeah.
Did you get a chance to meet Donald Trump?
We did get a chance to meet him.
Really? And what were your impressions of the president?
Are we going to get political now?
No, well, you can take it however you want to. How about that? But no, what did you think of Trump himself?
Now, I don't know if, you know, and I can't remember back then if we met him at that one or the first one. But, you know, we didn't get to talk to him a whole lot. But he was very nice, and I am a Trump fan. I like Mr. Trump, and I think he's doing a great job. And there's a few things I think he probably shouldn't say that upset a lot of people.
Think of the things we say on this show sometimes. So
well, yeah, I mean, I still can't believe you're talking about Lanny Poffo like that.
Do you think Lanny Poffo's fellatio could be in a Planned Parenthood commercial? Do you think maybe this is the solution to the...
oh, but I did meet Mr. Trump, and he was a very nice guy. You know,
up until his presidency, most people within wrestling, and he's been around a lot of different big events over the years, everybody had sparkling things to say about him. Again, he wasn't the president of the United States, but he is a legendary businessman, you know, reality television star. The boys generally liked him an awful lot at all the different WrestleManias he was at. Take your politics out of it, if you will, but as far as that goes, he seemed to be pretty genuinely happy to be at the events.
Yeah, I'll tell you, you know, when you watch them overseas, and the last, you know, thing was there for D-Day and everything, phenomenal.
Yeah.
You know, how could you not like him? You know, now when he comes back here and starts getting on some people and everything, there's, you know, half the country doesn't like him, but the other half does.
Yeah.
It's the same thing before. You know, half the country didn't like whoever was the president before, but you know, just how it works. But all I know is, you know, how much taxes do you want the government to take?
Exactly.
I mean,
how much of your money can they mismanage?
Whoever
what it boils down to in the end is there's a lot of mismanagement.
Whoever wants to raise taxes, why don't they just pay their money in?
They can give more if they want.
That's what I'm saying. When it comes tax time, and they owe their $10,000 or $20,000, why don't they put 40 in?
Help everybody else out.
If they were the greatest people in the world and really meant what they say, put the money in. Right? Enough politics.
All right. Well, we'll go back to the Trump Plaza venue itself. 4 and 5 are kind of looked upon historically as kind of duds when it came to WrestleMania. Do you remember anything in particular about the venue as kind of being not physically cold like this studio, but just kind of a tough place to kind of get the crowd going, where there was so many casino comps that were kind of at the venue? Or
no, but you know, it was a different crowd there because it was the people from the casino. There was a lot of stars. I think a lot of people back then, they weren't wrestling fans, but they thought, you know, God, it's at the Trump Plaza and it's sold out and everything, we better go to it. And I think they probably became fans after they watched that. And as the years go on, I think a lot of the movie stars and other people, they want to get asked to come there.
Yeah,
I think it's the big show.
I tell you, I think the anticipation for both 4 and 5 were off the charts, and I think the fans got a great ending to both 4 and 5 with the last match of the night. But to sit through those events from beginning to end, those was, even for a kid that was really excited to see them, those were some long, long shows.
Right.
I mean, especially with that 16-man tournament at 4. So you really didn't have to sit through most of the matches. You were just getting ready for yours.
Yeah, I never really got to see everything. You know,
if you ever take the time to reflect upon your career and some of the big events you worked, I challenge you to sit through 4 and 5 with a smile, or remain awake at the end of it. I tell you, a match, as a matter of fact, that I wanted to touch upon, Jake and Andre, which was, the match itself was just atrocious, with John Studd, of all people, as the guest referee. Andre and Jake Roberts had some issues over the years. Andre was rather abusive with Jake. Any idea why the man you knew as boss was so difficult with the Snake?
Well, I don't know why that would happen, but, you know, Andre was a great guy and Jake's a great guy, but, you know, Andre believed in what he believed, and if, you know, if he didn't like you, he didn't treat you well. Business-wise, he did the best he could do to have the match. But if he didn't like you, you knew it. You really did. Thank God he liked me, you know, and he liked me because he loved Bill, and that's how we all got to be friends and everything. But, you know, how do you have a bad match with Jake? You know, Jake's one of the best workers in the business.
They didn't gel, and I don't think John Studd as the referee helped.
Yeah, and you never know what that whole story was behind the scenes and everything. But, you know, Andre had a tough time working starting about that time too. He wasn't.
Yeah, he was starting to decline.
Yeah, so you really had to work around Andre, and you know, Jake probably wanted to do things, and Andre said, "Oh no," you know, and you know, you never know what the whole story was.
He was really afraid of the Snake. Is that true?
You know, I don't know, but I know I seen him come back in the dressing room one time and he had teeth in his...
From the snake?
From the snake.
Really? Oh, I wouldn't want to be bit by that big snake.
Yeah.
Was it odd to have so many animals around you in a professional wrestling locker room? Well, you had Frankie with Coco Beware, you had Matilda with the British Bulldogs, you had Damien with Jake the Snake. It was almost like a zoo at certain points. It was like the studio.
It was the entertainment business.
Yeah.
You know, one night in Rosemont Horizon, it was Bill and I, and Hulk and Jake.
Survivor Series '89.
Survivor, yep. So Jake had a couple of snakes in the dressing room, and he kept them in the shower. And usually he had some, you know, cold water, you know, not hot water, but in there, so then the snakes would kind of settle down a little bit. Well, the Bulldogs every once in a while would go in there and turn the water on pretty warm, so it'd get the snakes a little bit riled up. Well, that night, Jake had a snake. It was probably about 25 feet long. I don't know exactly, but it was about that big around and had a head about that big.
Oh my God!
So it was so big that, you know, 4 people would have to carry it out, and that was what we were going to carry out. Well, when we got in the shower, that snake was up like this, you know, and I mean, with the head that big.
That could have killed you easily.
And Jake had the head, and Hulk was like, no way, you know, he grabbed the tail, and Bill and I were in the middle, and that thing was, you know. So Hulk says, there ain't no way we're taking this to the ring. So we put it down, and then there was a smaller snake that we had. Well, we ended up throwing it out there, and the thing was so wild because of the warm water on it from the Bulldog, you know. I mean, you know, what a rip, right? And the snake gets in there. So anyways, I heard a story, I don't know how true it is.
All right, let's hear this one.
But about a week later, everybody's wondering where that big snake is. Well, Jake put it in the bag and left it in the building for the snake guy to get it. Well, somehow the snake got out of the bag.
Oh my God!
And the janitor in there finds the bag and wondering, what the heck is this? Well, pretty soon the snake guy is asking Jake, "Hey Jake, what happened to the snake? You know, Jake says, "Well, I left it there for you." And well, what snake? Well, the snake got up in the rafters, I guess, and it was about 2 or 3 weeks later. Then they finally got the snake.
I never heard that.
That's the story.
Did they find it like a Bulls game or a Blackhawks game or something like that?
I don't know, but it was gone for about 2 weeks up in the rafters or something.
Oh my God!
I don't know if it's a true story or what, but that's the story I heard.
Oh, I want to delve into that one. That sounds like there could be some real laughs behind it. Yeah.
Dig that one up. And another time, Jake gets on the plane and one of the snakes got out of the bag.
During the flight?
Before we got on the flight, we're all on the plane, and you see all these guys running around. They're going, ah! And Jake's in the plane, and the guy comes running up. Hey, there's a snake loose on the runway. Somebody's got to get the snake,
On the runway?
Yeah, it's outside where the baggage is. So
really?
So
wow.
Jake goes, runs out, gets this. You see Jake, exaggerate, with the snake. He catches it.
Oh, he started working with the snake?
Everybody on the plane's looking out the window. Jake's got the snake. Yeah.
Was it difficult for him to have to carry around a big snake from city to city?
It had to be.
I mean, that's a heck of a responsibility.
Well, that's like the Bulldogs with that dang dog.
Matilda, yeah. Did you know that Matilda's actually buried around here?
No.
Yeah, there was a guy that used to drive a limousine that ran independent shows. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. He was loosely affiliated with Killer Kowalski at times doing independent shows. And I guess the Bulldogs, when they were on their way out in '88, said, "You want the dog?" And he kept Matilda.
Oh,
and Matilda's buried in his backyard now.
That dog would really go after you in the ring. Oh, yeah. They'd give it the command, and it'd run right after you, try to bite you.
We've had some guys in the studio that said the Bulldogs were just unmerciful with some of the pets. They'd shoot Matilda and the different snakes up with steroids, and I mean that's a rough night at the office for some of those poor pets.
No, I never heard anything.
Never
about
heard that one.
No.
How would Matilda fly? Did they have like a little dog case for her?
Little dog kennel.
Yeah.
And Frankie was in a little cage. And
was there more than one Matilda, like they were snakes, or was there just one?
I don't even know. I never asked that question. It's like you're in your own world, So I didn't know a lot of the stuff that went on.
Well, it's like, here is your episode of Animal Kingdom here on Memories and Legends.
It's like Lanny. I didn't know all that stuff went on. I was in my own world,
I'm telling you this, you were probably better off to be out of his world with the fellatio.
And Lanny's a great guy.
He's a unique guy, but I think he's a really good guy.
A unique guy.
Well, even before I knew about the servicing, So
you think it's real?
Yes.
You do?
His reaction and the hatred for Ole Anderson discussing the self-servicing was, I might have to dig it up for you. I don't think I've ever seen Lanny that angry. Just pure hate. I mean, the veins in his neck they were ready to burst. That Ole Anderson would share these tales of Poffo past. Angelo was known for doing the 6,000 plus sit-ups, and Lanny was sitting up doing something else.
Whoa.
All right, wrestling fans.
Our crowd left.
You know what? They were afraid Lanny might be behind the curtain. Never mind Damien. But I tell you, WrestleMania 6 is one. We talked about how great The Rock is, Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty are. Shawn Michaels tells this story about WrestleMania 5. He got into an argument with his wife in the hotel room. Then he went out on the town with Marty. They got shit-faced at different bars around AC, wandered back into the hotel 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, had to use certain substances to try and get up the next day to even perform at WrestleMania 5 in what was a pretty good match with Hakeem and Big Boss Man. But do you think those type of antics from the Rockers hurt them as far as their credibility went with The Office?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because I think The Office looked at it like, can we trust these guys when we give them a big push? Are they going to make it to the big show?
Right.
It had a lot to do with it.
One thing to do it, not that it's right, the night of a house show, but to do it the night before WrestleMania 5? Come on.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
That was just stupidity. I mean, and granted, you mentioned how young you were. I think Shawn he would have been 23 in 1989 for WrestleMania, so he was still a relatively young guy.
Yeah.
But just immaturity. You'd think when Marty was older than him, he would have been trying to school him and educate him like you were talking about with Ernie Ladd, instead of making the process worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's just one.
Well, one good thing, they were a good tag team because they did it together.
And they got Akeem and Big Boss Man ready for you.
Yeah.
I
How
like
was
that
that fun?
team. Yeah, well, we're going to get there after WrestleMania 5. I just want to continue through a few more notes from the big event. Hogan and Macho Man. I mean, when you talk about in the end what was responsible for filling Trump Plaza, $1.7 million gate, all the publicity on NBC. I mean, Hogan and Savage was about as hot as it got.
Big, big.
I ask you this.
And they had a good match, too.
They sure did. One of Hogan's better matches.
They had a hell of a match.
In your opinion, do you think where Macho Man was so hot as the babyface champion, do you think they could have rode that longer instead of turning him on Hogan?
Definitely.
Yeah. I think they could have even gotten another year out of it.
Yep. They, I don't know why they didn't take care of some of the angles that were working.
Yeah. I mean, like, as I said earlier, this was an angle they really cultivated. I mean, it really began once they kind of got joined at the hip in late '87 when they turned Randy babyface. You had Hogan assisting Savage at WrestleMania 4 to get the belt. You had them teaming throughout '88. You had a little dissension at the Royal Rumble. Hogan patting Elizabeth on the ass by accident a couple of times. You had the big angle on the main event where, you know, Elizabeth was in the hospital room and Hogan was praying, hey, brother, and Savage hit him in the head with the championship belt.
You think it was by accident he patted her, or you think that was the angle?
Well, we were talking about some of those swinging situations in the car on the way down. I don't know if that was going on. Randy was pretty possessive, but it was a great angle. I mean, one of the most memorable angles of the 1980s, if not company history.
A lot of times that some of those angles start because it was an accident.
There you go. Well, that was the way Randy always positioned it.
Yeah.
Who knows?
You never know.
And look at how things ended in '92, but we'll have to save that for the 1992 episode, I guess. Also saw the first pinfall loss on this show of Ultimate Warrior to ravishing Rick Rude. Rude was someone you trained with up in Minnesota, another Minnesota guy. Why did Rick Rude have the magic to be one of the few guys that could get a reasonably good match out of Ultimate Warrior?
Boy, Rick worked his tail off every single night, you know, and I think he had a couple of, you know, I think he talked to the Warrior a few times and said, hey, you better do this or, you know, it's going to be one of those kind of things. Because Rick was a real tough guy in real life. Great guy, would do anything anybody wanted to do. But I can remember a few times Warrior hurt him, and Rick never returned the potatoes. And I think after a couple of times, Rick finally told Warrior, you know, you do it one more time, I'm going to knock you out right in the middle of the ring.
Really?
And then all of a sudden,
the change in attitude.
It started working, and they started having some really good matches.
Yeah, there were just a couple of guys that, for whatever reason, were that good of a worker that they had that magic recipe that they could get something watchable out of the Warrior as opposed to his usual 3 or 4 minute routine that was fun for the first few times.
Yeah, he actually had the Warrior down selling without being a maniac selling.
Yeah.
It was like he got to be a regular guy all of a sudden. And I think that actually made the Warrior a lot better of a wrestler, wrestling Rick Rude.
Well, it extended the program and really made you want to see SummerSlam when they went at it at the Meadowlands later on in the year, but we'll talk about that.
But I know Rick came back many times, beat up pretty good. Yeah. You know, I wrestled the Warrior, and he was stiff, and you really had to be stiff back with him. You know, that was the only way you could do it.
Well, remember this?
In fact, Warrior knocked out my teeth.
Did he?
Yeah.
Wow.
First time my mom ever went to the wrestling matches.
Really?
She sat in the front row. He gave me an elbow, boom, knocked my 2 teeth out. They fell out right by my mom. My mom looked at him. That was the last match she ever went to.
Really?
Yeah.
How come she'd never been before that, out of curiosity?
She didn't want to see me getting beat up or me beating up anybody else. You know?
Well,
isn't that something?
Remember the Christmas song, All I Want for Christmas is My 2 Front Teeth? She got them, literally.
Yeah.
All right, wrapping up I had one more final point about WrestleMania 5 that I thought was kind of odd. Yeah, what I didn't like was that Bobby Heenan really took a beating on that show. His Ultimate Warrior gave him the press slam and just let him go, practically landing on his shoulder and his face, which added to Bobby's neck problems. And there were war awards between the two of them before Bobby passed away. But how reckless could Warrior be with people that he had zero interest in protecting? Why? Maybe I should ask you, why did he have such little interest in protecting the people he was in there working with?
I don't think he could work.
That was it? He didn't know how.
And it's not that I don't think he cared. I think that You know, Vince probably pumped him up so much, having him believe that he was the warrior and you got to be the toughest guy in the world. And I think that's where he didn't care about how good he made you. You know, most of the time in wrestling, you know, you make the other guys look so good, and then when you beat somebody that good, that makes you that much better.
Right.
Well, I don't think he had that thought process in his mind at all. I think it was just, I'm going to get this win, I'm going to look the best I can, and however I got to do it, that's what I'm going to do, because I'm the one getting the big push. And somebody in the office is telling him to do that. And if you all of a sudden didn't let him do that, you wouldn't be wrestling him anymore, and you wouldn't be making the money. So that's why I think he just kind of did whatever he wanted to do and didn't really care about that.
He didn't have to really worry about repercussions.
No.
Well, I think that was wrong. But
I do, and I don't know this stuff, but I mean, that's just kind of what I think, you know.
Just for someone as
the guy's
harmless as Bobby Heenan, to just hurl him around like he was nothing, that was the epitome of disrespectful, I think.
And Bobby Heenan, if you punched him, you don't even have to touch him, and he'd do a 1.5.
He loved
He was
the
best bump taker in the business.
He was better than most of the boys.
Oh, my God.
I'm losing my voice.
You'd throw him in the corner, and he'd do a flip over the top, and I mean,
his bumps were great. You didn't need to do what he did in that case.
Disrespectful completely.
But I got to ask you about one more before we go to the commercial break about WrestleMania 5. This was one of, I think, the only time I can think of in watching wrestling now, dating back to 1986, that Howard Finkel screwed up.
Howard screwed up?
Yeah. In the opening contest, he introduced the match of Hercules taking on King Tonga, as opposed to King Haku. Oh. And I couldn't believe it. A guy that was just so perfect with everything. I don't know if it was those WrestleMania nerves maybe that kicked in. But
well, you know, a lot of times in the back, you'd call Haku Tonga back then. Hey, Tonga,
is his nickname, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So he probably had that kind of going through his mind. But Howard to make a mistake, you don't see that very often.
You do not see
and
that.
I hear
very
Howard's
often.
not doing very well right now. Is that?
No.
I love Howard. Howard's a great guy.
The picture I saw of him WrestleMania weekend, the poor guy looked awful. I've known Howard an awful long time. I helped Howard on some undercover missions with the Iron Sheik over the years. But
undercover.
Oh, times we had to find the Sheik when they needed him, and anytime something happened with the Sheik, it seems like they knew who to call to try and hunt him down. I wish he was harder to find like you were all those years, but maybe I would have saved myself some sanity and a few car accidents. But yeah, no, just I'm not quite sure what his ailment is, but I believe he's in a home receiving, around the clock help.
Oh my goodness.
And people can say whatever they want about Vince McMahon. They think his product isn't very good in 2019. They think he's an evil businessman for taking the Saudi Arabia money, but out of the kindness of his own heart, he spent the money, and this came from someone that works in WWE's offices right now, spent the money to have a nurse and a doctor and an ambulance come from that home with Howard in his bed, bring him to the WWE hotel in Brooklyn for the whole weekend and be around the boys. And you know what?
That's huge.
Thanks
Vince for doing that.
Even if you don't like him, you can't take that away from him.
Right.
There you go. All right, wrestling fans, I'm hearing that music in the background. We're going to be back after this brief timeout as we continue that walk down memory lane, 1989. Stand by. I'm Dan Marotti.
And I'm John Cena Sr.
Let us tell you how the action and excitement of the Millennium Wrestling Federation can help raise cash for your nonprofit cause. Experience the action and excitement of the Millennium Wrestling Federation live in your city, throughout New England, the tri-state area, down through the Carolinas, out to our friends in the Midwest and beyond.
If your nonprofit organization is looking for an interactive turnkey experience while putting enough fun into fundraising, you've met the perfect tag team partner to work with every step of the way.
The MWF offers a variety of packages for groups of almost any size, from our live events at the Boston Garden, the Kowloon Entertainment Dining Complex, and the legendary Suffolk Downs, to high school gyms and function halls. We've presented live events everywhere and anywhere.
Since 2001, the MWF's mission has been simple: keep the kids off the streets. Under the leadership of President David Reese, we bring the superstars of yesterday, today, and tomorrow to your town. Not for a wrestling show, but an event that features action-packed in-ring wrestling, autograph, pose photo opportunities, Q&A sessions, and so much more. It's the best of sports and entertainment. The week of your event, we can add on to the endeavor with anti-bullying campaigns, library meet and greet reads, youth sport concussion seminars, and more.
Our live events are fit for fans of any age from 5 to 95. This fall is part of our new Kids Club program. We offer live event experiences exclusively for the youngest of fans. On the flip side, we can produce a tailor-made event for fans of an older demographic as well. We work with you every step of the way to get the word out to fans near and far on our local television offerings and to over 50,000 fans and growing on our social media platforms.
Your success is our success. If your group has had enough of candy bar and wrapping paper sales and has the energy to team with our passionate fan base, bringing the NWF experience to your community is the answer to put smiles on faces while raising cash for your cause.
Contact us today to get the ball rolling for your custom-made event that you'll want to bring back year after year to your community.
Don't just take it from us. Here are the folks we've teamed up with in the past.